I'd like to call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording this meeting. Seeing none, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item of business tonight is to discuss and vote goals and objectives, first for the Board of Selectmen and the Town Manager. Is there anyone who wants to speak first?
I guess I can get started. I'll just,
Okay, yeah, we're going to go on to discussion.
One of the things I think that the board should probably be paying a little bit closer attention to is the bylaw review that's been ongoing for the past year. It's been quite an undertaking of the bylaw committee to go forward, prepare them, get them to the town council, and then have it come back. It's still, from discussion with the town manager, it sounds like it's going to be in the course of the next year before that's actually going to happen. So I don't know if that should be one of our goals, to kind of focus on the bylaws, the review, and be sure the process continues.
Do you want to comment on that?
Through the chair, that's correct. The process is probably going to take another year. The last year we spent looking at all of the bylaws on the general and administrative side, not the zoning side, and identifying discrepancies between a bylaw and the charter, and trying to make proposed revisions to existing bylaws, some of which hadn't been updated for, I said, somewhere between 10 and 30 years on some of them. And we also had each individual department have several meetings within their own department to come up with some proposed new bylaws that may make sense to propose. And then we took that entire package and submitted it to town council to start his review, and at the same time the bylaw review committee to start having them start looking at it. They will spend at least, I would say, the next year between the bylaw review committee, the town council review of it, and then there would be meetings with all the department heads and the bylaw review committee for the department heads to explain what the changes are, what the proposed changes are. And then the bylaw review committee intends to hold public meetings, at which point they invite members of the community to come in and present the proposed bylaw revisions, talk about them, make any changes, back to town council once more. Then it has to go for a special town meeting, and then after that it goes to the Attorney General's office. So all told, it probably is another a good 12 months.
And the reason for suggesting that is that the town charter was changed in 2009. It's changed the board's responsibilities, and the town manager has a lot more responsibility, but I think it's our responsibility to be sure that we understand the bylaws, watch the revision process, and understand the bylaws as they're going through. And maybe we can ask some questions and see a little bit before they get actually adopted.
Okay. So, Mr. Holstrom, are you suggesting this would be a goal of the Board of Selectmen to review
and stay apprised of the bylaws coming forward before it gets to the town meeting, so we understand a little bit more about what's in them prior to the adoption.
Is there any discussion on this bylaw? And I'll take suggestions and comments from all members as to the goals of the Board of Selectmen, then we can see which ones we want to move forward with. So is there any discussion on Mr. Holstrom's, Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, if we do that, I'd just like to get a feel for what the mechanism would be. Would we be asking for a report for every bylaw that changed? Would we be asking for some type of quarterly? Because I don't think it would be a good use of the town manager's time to have to give us a report for every single change that is done. I think that if we have some sort of quarterly comprehensive report that changed, so I'm just kind of some sort of mechanism for doing that.
So I guess I'll ask Mr. Holstrom a question. Was it your intent to have the town manager supply this report, or was it to work with the bylaw committee?
Work with the bylaw committee.
Okay.
I think if we get some sort of an evaluation or some sort of a summary of where they are and what they're doing, then we would be a little bit more involved in the process and understand it, because like I say, the charter has changed and our responsibilities have changed. So if we're able to look at it and understand it, we can go forward.
And so if we do adopt this as one of our goals, certainly I think we could ask a representative, possibly the chairman, to come in and make it an agenda item and update us on where they are. I know that they're in the, and I know that they're in the process of writing the final documents and have put an incredible amount of time in. So is there anything else anyone wants to add on this proposed goal?
Can I just ask a question, if I may, through the chair? Just to clarify, so we would be, the board would be asking the bylaw review committee for a quarterly update?
Right.
Quarterly? Yes.
Yes. Correct?
Yes, that would be great, because I think in the first year, there's been a lot of review, there's been a lot of changes made and revisions, and of course, they're being reviewed by town council. So I think with this being the second year and coming to the closure of that, I think it'd be a good idea for us to keep an eye on what the summary is of those, so we understand them.
So, do we want to make a motion to adopt that goal, or do we want to continue with other members' recommendations? Mr. Simonian?
I would ask that we wait on a motion only because if there's any other goals for us that are going to require any type of reports, maybe we figure out if there's a way that we, would do those all at once at one meeting, or, what would be the best way to make that happen.
So do any members have any other goals they want to recommend? I have one if no one wants to speak right now. In November and December, we will be looking at our annual license renewals, and I know that we have been in the position of not knowing where applicants stand with their, whether they've met the conditions of their license. There are many, many license holders who will now be required to come in, because this will be the first year that we've had policy changes, and our policy is to have the applicant come in before the Board of Selectmen if we've adopted a new policy, and we have adopted new policies for several licenses. So I would expect that November and December will be busy, and I would like to see a subcommittee work on the annual license renewals in preparation of them coming, to be sure that license holders have met the requirements of their license before they come in before the board. And be sure that everyone is licensed appropriately for what they need.
I think that we are the licensing authority, so I think that's in our best interest to keep an eye on what the changes are and apply them as needed.
And I know, and I'll reference the liquor license policies. I know that every liquor license holder is supposed to have a copy of their license with all of the conditions. As you recall, recently we've read from that policy, and I just want to make sure in advance that everyone has a copy of that policy, so that we know that they're in compliance with the conditions of their license. Mr. Simonian?
Do we have a formal process for getting that information to the license holders before the renewal period? I know we always try to make sure that, they're aware before the license, but I don't know if
They are notified by the Board of Selectmen's office and the clerical staff that the licenses are coming due. With a couple of new ones recently, a couple of newly revised policies on licenses, we've enclosed the newly revised policies and made a note that, please note, the board has revised the policy and it's attached herein, so they see it. But it does create questions, and we had a number of questions this week that came in from a number of new licensees that the policies have changed. So we will make sure that every correspondence that goes out attaches a new policy if there is one.
And
But yes, they are all notified that their licenses will be due.
That would be for any and all,
Any and all.
going out.
Yes.
Annual basis, okay.
So you want us to take a larger role in that process? Is that what, I just want to make sure that
I do. I think that,
Okay.
that rather than the board just, having the list brought before us, I think that we need to be a little more proactive to make sure that those that are coming before the board have actually, adhered to their license requirements, and they know the conditions of their license, be it an liquor license policy, an entertainment license, whatever they're required to have. I know when we hand a license, we tell them it's up to them to be sure that they meet the conditions of their license. If someone under the liquor license policy is required to, say, have an entertainment license, we're assuming that they're doing that if they have entertainment in their place of business. I want to be sure that we're following through with that, in fairness to all license holders.
So we'd just be streamlining the process, is that, well,
Yeah.
that's
And we can
fair.
start looking at it in September, October, November, just to be a little more proactive, because I know that a lot of them come in at the end of the year, but we still, and we get these, just the lists at crunch time. I just want to be sure that that everyone is licensed properly. So that would be my recommendation, that as one of our goals, to have a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen report back to the status of all license renewals. Is there any other discussion on goals for the board? Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I know it was a while back, maybe almost a year and a half. We had discussed a couple of times, and I don't think we ever really followed through, because we had discussed the possibility of talking to some of the town departments and looking to see if there was a way that we could stagger some of the bills that go out, especially at the end of the year when folks get that big group right at the same time. And I don't think we ever actually followed through on that to find out if there was something we could. I know we discussed it a couple of times, and it's been a while. So I'd like to at least provide people with there's a way we can do it, or no, we can't.
Through the chair, may I ask what you're referring to? I'm not familiar with what that is.
Absolutely. We had a discussion, especially at the end of the year, trash bill and a lot of the other town bills are all sent rated at the same time. And we had discussed looking at the possibility of trying to stagger some of those so that it wasn't all at the same time. And I just don't think we ever really followed through on that.
So you're talking through the chair, you're talking about sewer, trash bills, what other types of bills? I don't know, I guess it's,
Trying to
I'm
remember
not
all
sure
the
if it's
ones.
licensing that we're looking at, or whether it's just overall, or taxes, what it is. I'm just getting an
I don't
idea.
remember all the ones that we had discussed, but
So is this a goal for
for us.
or the manager? I mean, I'm not seeing that we have,
Oh, I guess, that would
Authority
essentially
over
be a
that.
town.
you have any thoughts on that one?
Actually, it might have been long enough ago
That would,
before we had a town manager.
it sounds like what you're proposing would be something that town administration would look at if that's a proposed goal for town manager.
That's fine.
Because that would involve departments looking at that and having to see, I mean, some bills have to be sent out by law on certain dates.
Okay.
So it would be looking at all of the different departments, what bills they send out, and what their mandated requirements are for billing.
Okay, so have the town manager evaluate the timeline
Yeah.
of when bills go out to residents, to see if at all possible to stagger them so that residents aren't getting all of their bills
Right,
at the
if-
same time.
If we can't, that's fine, but the question's been asked, and we did discuss it, but it was just never really followed up on, so.
Okay, so that's, I'm going to put that under a manager's goals. Does anyone have anything else for the manager or for Board of Selectmen goals? Mr. Grossman?
Referring to last year on staff and departmental relationships, do you as town manager issue goals and objectives for the various department heads throughout
Yes.
the town? Okay.
When I started, I was asked by the board to develop an evaluation system because one was not in place. So we did, I developed an evaluation system for all the department heads and division heads. And through that system, there is a standardized form, similar to the evaluation form that you gave me, and each department and division head has a set of goals. And those goals are established after my goals are established. So for the coming year, they would not be established until my goals are established by you. So then we carry them through amongst the departments. So if one of the goals that the board sets for me is this timeline for the bills, for instance, that would be something that we would incorporate into the department heads, so that they're also looking at the timeline of the bills. So their goals get established after mine get established. They're written down, and then they're evaluated annually.
One thing that I would like to see is that we as a board get a report on a quarterly basis as to how they're coming with their goals and achievements of the goals that you've given them, and that they followed through on them, because in some instances I feel that things are not being done that should be done in a timely manner.
If I may, go ahead.
So I just want, well, before I lose my train of thought, I'm glad you mentioned Section B of this evaluation. As you know, we all recently did the town manager's evaluation, and I really struggled with this section now that everything is in place, because these are personnel issues, things that we don't necessarily know about. These evaluations go into a personnel file, am I correct?
Correct.
So that they're not made available to this board. I know I can ask of the manager questions, general questions, to see that that helped me answer or evaluate this section, but I'm struggling with the fact, and I really realized it when we did this recent evaluation, these are personnel issues that are difficult to have in this form, because they're no longer under our purview. They're not under a personnel board. They're town manager, and as we all know, the Board of Selectmen have to be very, very careful when getting involved with legally, we have to be careful getting involved in personnel matters. So I'll just put it out there for discussion, but I'm struggling with this whole section because it is personnel-based, and we need to be careful not to cross the line of getting involved in personnel matters. Mr. Holstrom, you had something?
Yeah, through the chair, I think I would reinforce that yeah, they are personnel matters. The town manager now, with the new charter, has all these responsibilities to maintain that the department heads are, and their departments are functioning as they should be. If the town manager feels that there is a problem, she should bring it to us, but other than that, it is a personnel issue. Like I say, I can't say it enough that the town charter has changed our responsibilities here. They are her responsibility now, and if it comes to a point where she finds that it's a little bit more than what her office will handle, she will bring it to us, but otherwise personnel issues. And along with that, anything with negotiations of any of the labor contracts, that stays away from us now, because we do not negotiate those. And I think that's enough said with that we shouldn't be involved with that either.
Mr. Simone, and then Mrs. Brotherton.
Yeah, I read through this section a few times, and I don't think this is really asking us to get involved in those personnel issues. This is really our understanding of the town manager handling these issues. And I think that, as you said, general questions in regard, I mean, obviously, when it comes to things like collective bargaining, so we discuss some of those things in executive session. We're aware of pretty much what's going on. I think, overall, it's just our assessment of, working with department heads. I think it would be easily evident if that wasn't happening. There'd be a breakdown in the structure if that wasn't going on. So, I think it's fairly easy in this general sense to evaluate that part without us crossing that line, because I agree with you there. We don't get involved in that anymore, and that's fine, but this is more general towards her handling these 5 goals and not necessarily the actual personnel part of it. That's my feeling.
Did you have something?
Yes, I did. First of all, I'd like to apologize for my tardiness to the chair and
No
to
problem.
my peers. Spring has sprung early, as we all know, and with it being so light and so warm and spring-like, I lost track of time. So I do
No
apologize.
problem.
In regards to this, I have to agree with Mr. Simonian. I don't think it's asking the board how Ms. Jacobson handles it. I think it's the fact that we need to know as a board, where do these department heads, if they have a conflict, where do they go with their conflict? If they have a conflict with Ms. Jacobson, what's their next chain of command to go to? So I think if it ever did become a problem, as far as not being able to, if she wasn't breaching the department heads appropriately or whatever, I think it is our concern. I don't ever foresee it being a problem, but it does give us the ability to see, how does she work with others within the department? Like with the collective bargaining. I mean, I think she's been exceptional with that. She has kept us very much abreast, and I think that needs to be duly noted when it comes to issues like that.
So I'm going to go back to Mr. Grossman. So what was your recommended goal? I know early in the discussion.
Basically, you're not getting into, I didn't mean for it to be getting into personal issues of personnel, but in general, that we get a report on a quarterly basis how the department head is doing in the assignments that have been given to them and following through on the manager's requests.
So you want a quarterly report on the goals of department heads?
Yep.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, the charter's pretty clear. The Board of Selectmen oversee the town manager. You set my goals, you evaluate me. The town manager sets goals and evaluates the department heads. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't not follow the charter. I think that's crossing the line between overseeing the town manager and overseeing the department heads. I set their goals with them. I sit down, I evaluate them on them. They also do the same for their employees, and those go in personnel files. That's not public information. It's not something that we should be reporting on quarterly, how the department heads, they're reporting to me on that, and I'm watching it. And if they don't meet their goals, they're not going to get scored well. So I think we have to be careful. If we're trying to follow the charter, and everything we've done so far has been to try to make sure we're in line with the charter, we can't cross that. I don't believe the Board of Selectmen can have department heads reporting to them on their goals.
No, but it's getting a report from department heads on their quarterly goals.
How they're progressing on their goals, so that we know what's going on. Otherwise, you don't know until the following year the problems that are there aren't being addressed in a timely fashion.
Through the chair, again, I oversee the department heads. I meet with them on a regular basis, not just quarterly. I meet with them weekly, if not more often. We have monthly meetings with the department and division heads, and they have their goals that are all agreed upon, and they work toward those goals. If there's a problem, that gets written up in their personnel file, and that's a personnel matter if they're not meeting their goals. They are held accountable. That's why the system is now in place. There never was a system. There is now a system where there's accountability, and you've tasked me, as the charter has, to keeping that accountability for all personnel. So I believe it's a breach to report on how the department heads are doing on their goals, because that's handled internally. If they're not doing well on their goals, and there's some, whether it warrants a disciplinary effort, or it warrants a lack of a promotion, or any kind of action, that's personnel related, and that can't become public. And we can verify that with Labor Council. I'm happy to do that if you want me to, but I have asked several times what's public and what's not, because when there are personnel issues, as you all know, I have to be very careful what I tell you. I do inform you as I can to the general nature of an issue. I've always kept you informed. But as you all know, I've had to be extremely cautious what I state, so we don't breach any laws, whether they be personnel or mass general laws with regards to personnel. So it's very difficult, and I think that the charter does make it clear that the town manager has to be in charge of the personnel and oversee that, and I think that that would create a legal problem.
Okay.
Is Mr. Simone and then Mrs. Brotherton?
If you're staying on this topic, I'll wait.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Simonian.
No problem.
I think we've gotten a little off track here, because everyone has some great ideas here. I think the whole purpose of this paragraph, the staff and department relationships, is a way for the board to grade you, if you like, use the term grade, on how you as the town manager, how you are handling those issues. We're not asking to be, personal information is, I don't want any personal information, but just knowing maybe that if there was an issue, that you're handling it, that and how well do you do that? And I think you do a very good job. If there's an issue, you're very good with it. We don't have to know it, but I think you need to be scored on that, and I think that's a very high score for you, because you do keep in contact. I don't know if that clarified, or is everyone just as baffled?
And well, I'll just say, I'm just looking at item B4, recruits, appoints, trains, and evaluates personnel effectively.
We know that firsthand.
But, no, with the exception of evaluates personnel effectively, we don't know what the evaluation is, because it's confidential and it goes into the personnel file.
We're not requesting that.
Oh, see, no, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I took that as like when the town manager brought in town council periodically to give speeches to the residents, and in effect asking us to come aboard and listen to these. I consider that educational, and I think you do that. Am I misreading that?
No, the training aspect
Right,
of it, I
yes.
agree. I'm saying evaluates personnel effectively. That's an evaluation.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Holstrom, then
You're right.
Mr. Simonian.
My feeling is, get rid of B altogether. Staff and departmental relationships, that's personnel issues, that's accountability for department heads to the town manager. We are out of that. The charter has put us out of that. We are responsible for what the town manager does. The town manager sees what is coming to her. I would think that anything with staff and departmental relationships is personnel issues. We should just get rid of that altogether. And just to reinforce that, if you go back to A, relationship with the Board of Selectmen, she keeps the board members informed on the issues, needs, and significant incidents of the town departments. Let's get rid of the personnel altogether.
Mr. Simonian.
Again, Section B, I think, is necessary. It's pretty generic. I don't think it's asking us to specifically get involved in any personnel issues. This Section B, to me, speaks to the HR component that we really didn't have. It had been dormant for, I believe it was 12 years. It was one of the common goals of the board that, HR policies for evaluating personnel. I'm certainly not going to go and ask to look at someone's personnel records. I don't want to know, and I don't care. That's not what we do. That is absolutely the town manager's position. But when I look at number 4, evaluates personnel effectively, well, that speaks to the HR component that I believe, and through the chair, I'll ask the town manager, it is still ongoing and evolving. Some of the policies that the board originally asked from day one have been put into place. A new evaluation process and some of the other things are there. And that's what I believe this speaks to, but we also know that the HR component of doing those evaluations and having, a process for, reprimands, dismissals, if need be, and things of that nature, those are still in the works. So I would like to keep this in, and also make it one of the goals to continue to evolve that HR component and the processes that I believe allow us to evaluate what was very important to this board, be picked up and move forward at the time that we initially hired the town manager. That was one of the goals that was on everyone's sheet to make sure was taken care of. We had some issues that, had kind of fallen through the cracks, and there were some things that had gone on that nobody really knew how to handle. So I would like to see this stay in because I believe it speaks to that HR piece.
Through the chair, and to address Mr. Sweeney, I just want to be clear, the board did ask me to put an evaluation process in place. That process is in place. It's being formed. So every year I would say that it's ongoing. It is in place, it's been implemented. As a part of that, we also developed an exit interview form as well as an exit interview process so that every person who leaves gives us feedback on why they're leaving and if there are problems, we want to identify them as they're leaving so we don't have the problem with the next person in. We've also developed a discipline policy. The discipline policy has been put into place and everybody has that discipline policy. My goal this year was to redo the entire personnel policy manual. That was 25 years old plus. That entire personnel policy manual has been redone. And now we go forward. That will be an ongoing process. If something needs to change or be tweaked, we'll be looking at that. As a matter of fact, within a month of finishing it, we came across another issue and we thought, this is worthy of addressing in a personnel policy. So all of that is being done. I think the difficulty on my end anyway is how do I report that to you without reporting on the specifics of what's being done, other than to tell you exactly that these things are in place. These are the policies we've put in place. Without, as Mrs. Brotherton said, I can't say specific names or specific incidences. I can just be generic.
Mr. Simonian.
To that point, number 4, evaluate personnel effectively. I don't need to know what everyone got on their evaluation, but if all of those evaluations that the town manager is required to do are completed, then my point is, she's evaluated personnel effectively because she's completed those evaluations. If they weren't completed, then no, they haven't been. And that's the point that I'm making. So I understand. I understand what Mr. Holstrom is saying. So, given what the town manager just said, possibly, I wouldn't have a problem with potentially rewording number 4 to, since exit interviews are done, maybe instead of evaluate personnel effectively, something like use any exit interview information to evaluate and improve, some of that HR policy that's evolving still. Something to that effect.
So if it's just an assurance that town employees are being evaluated on an annual basis, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, I would believe, since we just all did this evaluation, the only way to know that is that I would now assume, if everyone gave a score, that every member of the board went to the manager and asked her if she completed an annual evaluations.
Well, I think that was part of discussion too.
I'm just saying.
So
Evaluates personnel effectively. The only way we would know if every employee was evaluated is if every member, prior to doing their evaluation. Exactly. So I'm assuming that every member of the Board of Selectmen went to the manager in order to give her a score and said, "Did you evaluate?" I mean, I think I'm
Yeah, no,
saying this
and that's-
accurately. So,
and-
so if you gave her a score, no matter what that score is, you went to her and said, have you done a performance evaluation on every town employee as requested? So
And that's,
that would be an assumption on my part.
so we can ask that question, are all the evaluations complete, not what did X get on the
Right,
evaluation?
so that's what I'm
And that's why I don't have a problem with section B.
So in section B, I'm assuming the evaluations that were just submitted over the last 2 weeks, that would have required every member to go to the manager, and this is what triggered this for me is, in the evaluation, have you done performance evaluation? So I hope that if we're going to keep it in there, every member of the board is doing their job to go talk to the manager and say, did you do this? And if she says yes, you have no other choice than to give her a high score for that. Because otherwise, we wouldn't know. So I found myself in that position. I said, I have to evaluate you on these personnel issues. Evaluates personnel effectively. The only way to ask if she's evaluating the personnel effectively is to go to the manager, knock on her door and say, did you complete these performance evaluations? Otherwise, it's a personnel issue that we wouldn't know about.
Well, again, it's a multi-part point too, there's three things in that.
I agree, but it's still in that evaluation. That part is in the evaluation. Mr. Holstrom?
I think B should be wiped right off the map. The evaluation report that we got from the town manager was not in her best interest to take all that time to explain all these different issues. In A, the relationship with the Board of Selectmen keeps board members informed on the issues, needs, and significant incidents of the town departments. They are accountable to her. She is accountable to us. I think that's where it lands. Personnel issues, we should stay away from, and that's the way it should be. We should stay away from personnel issues altogether. And we don't need to know the evaluations of individuals. We don't need to know anything. A1 says significant incidents of the town departments keeps board members informed, and that's where it should last.
And where it's important to the board members, I'll just follow up on that. If you meet with the manager prior to her evaluation and you go to number 1, informed on issues, needs, and significant incidents, have you met the requirements of evaluating department heads, et cetera?
That's it.
More comment on this one?
Yeah.
Did you want to comment, and did you have something, Steve? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just, I disagree, and again, we made it clear that we wanted an HR piece, we wanted it created, we wanted specific things. These speak to the creation of that, and now, a couple of years later, we're just gonna throw it away. It doesn't make much sense.
If I may respond to that, if we're going to go with a human relations department, that comes under the town manager also, and it does not come to the responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen's responsibilities have changed significantly since the charter was changed and revised in 2009. It goes to the town manager now. I don't think we need to have all that sent to us, that HR will be accountable to the town manager.
Okay. Mr. Simonian?
The town manager reports to the board. The board is responsible to the citizens. We're talking about a review here. I'm not asking to be involved in any HR issues. I'm not asking to be involved in any personnel issues. I don't want to be. I have no desire to be. But it is our responsibility we ask for an HR piece to be created. We're not asking to be the HR department. If we throw this out, how do we evaluate the fact that these HR pieces that we asked to be created, how do we evaluate that? How do we keep apprised that it is evolving, it is being done, if we just throw this away? No one is asking to be involved in personnel issues. It's not what we're doing here. We're just evaluating a specific piece that we asked to be created, that's all.
Through the chair, if to answer all of the selectmen's concerns, would it make sense then, if the intent and the end goal is to make sure that there is a human resource piece being done, would it make sense to make a goal that says something of continue to develop and implement personnel policies and procedures. I can report on that. I'm reporting on personnel policies and procedures. I'm not reporting on the quality or whether, I know if I've effectively evaluated an employee, but I can't tell you that. So I think a lot of this is the wording. I can't report on this because it's personnel related. But if it was to continue to develop and implement personnel policies and procedures, then I can report that this year we are developing a sick policy. We've developed a discipline policy. In the last year and a half, we've developed, put into place some 20 policies. So if that's, the board is looking for an HR component, I've done the HR component, I'm happy to report on the HR component of it versus the personnel aspect of it. That would be more generic to, I could attach what the policy is, I can attach the evaluation forms, you can actually see what was done, where you, my hands are tied with what I show you on the way the goals are written now. And that way, you would have something in hand. I could give you, for instance, you did make a goal for me this year of the personnel manual, as I mentioned earlier, and that was a massive undertaking. That took the entire year. You know, as we make changes to that, we can attach it and send it to the board. Or at the end of the year, I can report that that was done, or we now have a new sick policy, or we now have a new vacation policy, or whatever the policy may be. That would address the fact that Mr. Simone is saying you wanted an HR component, that's what we're doing. If we develop a training program, to Mrs. Brotherton's point, I can say we developed a training program, we held the annual training program. We have all those things in place, so if it's a matter of me reporting to the board that we are continuing to implement them, I can do that. But at this point, there's very little that hasn't been developed. Little by little, you know, we do see something that needs to be fixed and something that needs to be added, but everything that wasn't in place 2 years ago is now there.
Mr. Simonian?
It should be a goal, because it has been important to the board, but the things that are in here are specific. Collective bargaining is no longer a function of the board, it is a function of the town manager. I do think it's something that should be evaluated. I would absolutely not throw that out. You know, as far as training and HR, I'd be willing to consider, you know, how we look at that, but I wouldn't just completely throw this out. Again, works with department heads and staff to promote effective and prompt problem solving and conflict resolution. Town manager provides us with a written assessment of, you know, what she's done over the year. I went through that. Some of that spoke to this, and I was fine with what was in there. But at least, again, I'm not asking to be involved in specifically any discussion she has with department heads, but at least there's a mechanism for us understanding if there's something going on within the town structure. And the town manager, the charter says we have to evaluate her. I think that specific points of evaluation that are part of the performance, as with any job, is something that should be done.
We're going to move along here. Did you come prepared with any recommended goals?
I also have some, but if the town manager would like to go first.
No, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
Okay, one of the things that,
Is this a board of selectmen or manager, please?
this will go for the manager. The existing lease of the Package Out Golf Course is coming forward, probably in another 2 or 3 years. I'm not quite sure of the date. I think we, as a board, should direct the town manager to get a cost analysis of what it would, the operation of that course would be for the town. I think it would help us just report an estimating total cost and revenue based on the current number of the rounds played in the recent calendar year. So give us a cost analysis on what it would be, what the intake would be coming from the golf course as rounds of golf, and then also what it would be to maintain the course, including equipment.
So comprehensive cost analysis of the current operation?
Yes,
The golf
the Package
course?
Out Golf Course, correct.
Analysis and cost comparison.
Comprehensive evaluation and cost
Cost
analysis of current golf course operations, which for
Right.
anyone who doesn't realize it, it is on a lease, as Mr. Holster mentioned. I believe we've got 2 to 3 years left to go on the lease. So it would be evaluating the current operations of the golf.
And that would also include the cost of purchasing and leasing any equipment for us to take that operation over and go forward.
So, and an analysis of the feasibility of taking over
As a town.
the golf course operation at the end of the lease. And I think I would want to just make it clear at the end of the lease, because we don't want any misunderstanding
Right, absolutely,
amongst the
be at the end of the
lessee
lease.
to think that we're looking to stop that lease. It would be
Right.
recommendations for the end of the lease, if I could add that to that.
Did you have anything else?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
And before I turn it over to the manager, I think first of all, if we're going to keep this town manager evaluation, I'd like to see us look to having 3 to 4 goals at the maximum. We've already got this pretty comprehensive evaluation form, so I don't want to overburden the manager with goals. Having said that, did you bring any?
Through the chair, I did. A couple things for consideration of the board. Number one, the development of an open space and recreation plan over the next year that we could submit to have it ready to go for submission to the state. Having that plan updated, which has started, but we'd like to push it forward this year, that will give us the ability to apply for grants to DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation. But you need to have that plan in place and approved by the state before we're eligible for any of those types of grants. So I think it's important to get that plan done. So I would suggest that. And the other suggestion that I had, I think I'd really like to develop a plan to analyze, evaluate, a plan for the analysis, evaluation, and potential disposition and management of town properties. In other words, taking a look at those tax title receivables that we have and making a recommendation, coming up with a plan on the best way to handle the management of those tax title properties. There are many different models out there. We need to look at those models and determine what's in the best interest of the town as far as how do you manage those, what is the cost, and what route should we take to do that. Also, looking at foreclosed properties. What is the best manner of disposition of foreclosed properties, properties that now the town does own, whether that's an RFP, whether it's an auction, and looking at properties that the town owns and whether it's a lease. So I think it would be a good idea, and it would involve all the departments to do that. We're talking about treasurer, collector, assessor, and DPW, because you've got to look at parcels to see if there's any value from a transportation perspective or easement perspective. So it would involve every department taking a look at all of the parcels. We've got several scores of parcels that we need to look at that we've taken in over the years. We have to make a decision what we're going to do with them, how we're going to dispose of them if we are, and if we're not, how are we going to manage and maintain those parcels. So I think I would like to recommend that we develop a plan for the analysis, evaluation, and potential disposition and management of town-owned property. And that would include, as I said, tax title, foreclosure, and other properties that the town has under its control. And then, Mr. Holstrom mentioned it for a Board of Selectmen goal. I would also say that would then flow down to the town manager as well on the bylaws. It is another year of doing this, but if that is a Board of Selectmen goal, then I think we can leave it at that, and it's covered because I would be reporting through the committee anyway to the board, and obviously we're involved in it, so I can report on it. So whether you want to make it a separate goal, the process will be continuing. So my suggestion was going to be, from the town administration standpoint, town manager, that we continue the process to review and analyze and revise the bylaws in preparation for consideration of town meeting.
Okay. So before us are some proposals for the town manager's goals. We have develop an open space and recreation plan, analyze and review the billing schedules to see if the billing of residents, to see if there's a possibility of staggering those billings. A comprehensive study of Pack Jug Golf Course, and develop, plan, analyze, and evaluate the potential disposition of town-owned property. So there are 4 that we have here, unless I've missed something. 4. Do you have any?
The only fifth one I have
Comments
was the potential bylaw, the continuation of the bylaw process, if that goes under the town manager or it strictly stays under the Board of Selectmen.
It was your recommendation that the Board of Selectmen stay on
should
top
be
of this?
involved in
Yeah,
that, I
yeah,
believe.
because you've already got, that's
Okay.
already a goal that she's in the process of. Is there any discussion on the 4 proposed goals of the manager? Do you have any comment on those?
I think, through the chair, with those 4 goals, along with, if you want to continue the discussion on the form, so I know what you're expecting of me, but the form as it stands now has 28 different areas that I have to report on. So with 4, that's 32 areas that need to be reported on, so I think, personally, I think that's enough, and these are the broader issues that I think the board wants to look at, so I think that's fine.
So is there a motion for those 4 goals?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we voted on the manager's 4 goals. Good luck with those. So before you, for the Board of Selectmen, we have to continue the bylaw review and stay apprised. We can have a subcommittee do that. A subcommittee for the, I had notes here, annual license renewals in preparation of, I wrote it out so it sounded, license renewal subcommittee in preparation of annual renewals. And are there any, and continue and evaluate the policies and procedures of the Board of Selectmen. As you know, there has been a subcommittee, but these policies and procedures haven't been reviewed for many years, and as we change them and put them into place, there may be a need to tweak them. So I would recommend that we also continue the bylaw subcommittee as a goal. So we have those 3. Is there any comment? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do you have anything to add on this portion? I'll entertain a motion for like a 2-minute recess, and then we'll get back into the full agenda. We're adjourned for 2 minutes. I want to call this meeting back to order. I do want to let everyone know we have a full agenda tonight. We do have a couple presentations. We have a continuation of a public hearing. We have a presentation for the middle school, and then a full agenda. If you are on the agenda for Board of Selectmen items, it may be a little wait. We have 2 15-minute presentations, a continued hearing, and a school buildings committee presentation that will be about a half an hour. So just bear with us. The first item we have, under public comment, we have our town clerk, Ellen Gaber, who wants to talk about the elections. Thank you, Ellen.
Good evening. I have 2 informational items that I'd like to make residents aware of. There's been recently some publicity about towns combining their local election with either the state election June 25th or the primary April 30th. The state allowed towns to combine elections if they were within 30 days. Well, our town election is more than 30 days before the June election. And having elected town meeting members who have to be notified 7 days before the town meeting is, the election is 7 days before our town meeting. So meeting the statutory requirements of our charter would not be possible to move it back. Besides, moving back our town election 3 weeks would not have allowed candidates it would shorten the time that they had to collect signatures. So it was not possible for Auburn to do that. So we are having 3 elections. April 30th is the primary, May 21st is our town election, and June 25th is the state election. The other thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is the fact that I need town meeting members to sign up and run. We're short in every precinct. We also have an opening for a library trustee. There are 2 seats on that board and only 1 candidate. Town meeting members only need 10 signatures from their precinct. Nomination papers are available, and I would encourage incumbents, although I have reached out to incumbents. Some of them have said, oh, yes, I'm running again, and they have started to respond. However, the deadline is April 3rd, which is next week. My office will be open until 5 to accept those nomination papers, and I would ask if people would please consider running for town meeting. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. I just wanted to just go back to the first item,
sure,
to be clear.
Yeah.
So the question has been, it's a vote of the Board of Selectmen
Yes.
to schedule these elections, and people have come to us. But I just want to be clear that had it been possible, you would have come to us and given us that information.
Right. I would have
But
recommended that, yes.
because of the timing, it just wasn't an option for the town of Auburn.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you for coming in.
And I did have a conversation with you, Doreen,
Yes.
and the town
Yeah.
manager, Julie Jacobson.
And I just
yeah.
wanted to put it out there publicly.
Right,
because
so people
there was
know.
some concern that we didn't take any action on that.
Right.
And I just
And
wanted,
as of right now, towns who are holding separate elections are the only ones that will get some state reimbursement. Towns that are combining, they have not made any recommendation for reimbursement. So we're hoping that, we'll get some. We may not get fully reimbursed.
okay.
Okay?
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming in and sharing that information. The next item we have is a presentation, Habitat for Humanity. And if you could, Adam, you're going to assist?
Well, I just wanted to introduce the 2 gentlemen
you
we
so
have
much.
here with us.
Thank you.
We have Tim Furman, who is the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity, and Hank Roush, who is on the board. And they contacted me several months ago with some interest in doing some work in town, and they'd like to give you a quick rundown of what they're looking at.
Good evening, welcome, nice to see you again.
Good evening, and thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
I'm the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity here in Metro West and Greater Worcester. We're here in front of you today to solicit your support, solicit your input. We recently purchased a property here in Auburn on 4 Homestead. We're looking to develop that property as affordable housing. And I'd like to give you an introduction to who we are, talk about that piece of property, the possibilities with it. We spoke to the town manager about some options. What I handed out to you in front is examples of other houses that we built, and I'll walk you through our presentation. So we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, a Christian-based society. And we serve 42 communities throughout central Mass. More importantly, this is our coverage. So we go from Rutland to Sturbridge to Sudbury down to Sherburne. Our mission is pretty simple. It's seeking to put God's love into action, bringing people together, and building communities, homes, and hope. Building communities, home, and hope. And we're coming to Auburn with that opportunity to work together, work with the community on building it. We come in with no pretension about what we're going to build. It's a collaborative type effort in working with the appropriate individuals. The Auburn property, as I said, was a foreclosure and a sale to us from Bank of America. They're working with habitats throughout the nation, donating 2,000 plus properties. As an affiliate, we had the opportunity to step in on this property. It's a 2-bedroom ranch, approximately on a 12,000 square foot lot, abandoned and deteriorating in a potential rehab. Part of our consideration is what do we do with that single-story ranch? Is it stay a single story? Does it stay a rehab? Or do we look about turning it into a multi-family house? That's part of the discussion we are looking to have with the town about what are our options there. Is it a rehab, or do we approach it as a 40B? What's that option that makes the most sense to the town, and where do we go from here? We need community support. We raise money as we build a house. We have $0 when we start out, and we raise it through donors, sponsors, foundations, and volunteers. We're here to determine later that appropriate build, but we do build houses that are Energy Star, LEED compliant, and basically make it a sustainable home for that family stepping in. The house you see on the template there is Plantation Street that's under construction as we speak. That's actually 2 condos behind that frontage. We're also going to be building in Wayland, where the town gave us property, gave us 3 acres, and CPA funds to go with that. And we'll be building 4 homes in Wayland coming up. So it's about a neighborhood in need, taking care of overcrowding, taking care of physical inadequacy, and basically providing a decent shelter for people to live. How we work is that we work with the low to median income to 25 to 60% of median income. We do a sales price that's not based upon market, it's not based upon our construction cost, it's based upon the affordability that that family can afford. We back into the selling price based upon 30% of their income. They put in sweat equity, they being a family, they put in 400 to 500 hours of sweat equity. So it's really a hand up, not a handout. And we also hold the mortgage. We give a 0% mortgage for 20 to 30 years, depending upon what the family can afford, and that's a 0%. We work with the communities, the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, on both LIP proposals, if that's necessary, a local lottery, and also consider local preference. One of the things we talked about with the town manager was, can there be a local preference? That only happens if you have 50% of that, which means you do 2 on this location instead of 1. It's something for us to consider, but we can provide a local preference if in fact we can build more than 1. As I said before, it's LEED and Energy Star, but it also has a deed restriction on it. All of our homes are deed restricted, so they stay in the affordable market category in perpetuity. These are the type of houses we build, same elevation. We fit into the community. We make sure that you can't tell the Habitat house up and down the street. Architecturally and what's compliant with the neighborhoods is first and foremost in our construction. The families that we bring in, the one in the top middle there just moved into Fell Street. She's a Russian immigrant, deaf, her daughter's autistic, and they just moved into a 2-level, 2-bedroom house here in Fell Street. And the other families that we work on throughout. So our partners, we're looking to get support locally. The town, what's available from town funding, what's available from state funding, yet to be talked about. Corporate sponsors and build days involving the community. It's definitely outreach that takes place that builds this. Gifts in kind, the local vendors, the electrician that kicks in, anybody else that can participate in it. Faith partners, fundraisers, foundations, and grants, but that's how we raise the money. Family selection is based upon a couple categories. First and foremost, based upon need, their ability to pay, and their ability to partner with us. We obviously work with the HCD and the requirements they have, but it's as simple as that. We do have our alternatives. We do have an opportunity to do a 2-family duplex, possibly including the current footprint and having the bottom unit available for handicap accessibility and turning a single-level ranch into a double-level duplex, probably similar to what you see there in front of you. So we can do different things to it. We can raise the existing home or we can rehab the existing home. A lot of it's going to be dependent upon the direction we get from yourself and whoever you appoint to the assignment. And of course, design the style, as I said, to align with the neighborhood. Considerations you can see there are comprehensive permit if we decide to go that route with the town, local preference, volunteer support, etc. how can you really support us? And that's to the audience as well as those behind TV. Be a sponsor, be involved, be somebody that there is committed as a volunteer. Volunteer committees, and what skills can you bring to the table? It's definitely a community build. So the donations, the materials, the gifts in kinds that I talked about, and that's it. It's about what will you build and what will we build. So I'm open to questions, Q&A, and just take some questions from you or the audience as you see fit.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. First is, did you reach out to anyone in the neighborhood about this proposal that you had planned on doing tonight? And what are your next steps?
Yeah, Hank and I called all the abutters. I'm not sure if anybody's here tonight. We did reach out and call everybody that was on the abutter list. We only had one conversation that came back to us totally unfavorable. Our next step is really contingent upon what direction we take from the town, because I'd like to go back with them for something more concrete, because a lot of questions will be there. What are you building? So I think once we get to that point, it is about neighborhood meetings. It is about zoning and regulations. And we got something more concrete, then we open it up to that discussion. We will be doing outreach, though, in the meantime as well.
Great, thank you. Are there any board members who have questions? Mr. Holstrom.
If I may, through the chairman, have you approached the town manager and what discussions have been with you and the town manager regarding the Habitat program?
Yeah, it's only exploratory, it's only the introduction. Here's what we're considering. We have just purchased the property in the last 30, 45 days.
You have purchased this property?
We have,
okay.
Yes, exactly. So we now carry the deed to it, and it's really concerning what are the next construction steps, what are our options. We have a construction committee that will take guidance from what we come about from meeting with you and whoever it be to talk about the options that are available.
Through the chair, if I may, to Mr. Holstrom, we did meet. They did, Habitat approached Adam Burney, our town planner, and spoke with him, and then I met with them as well, and it was our recommendation that we have a presentation to the board tonight, because we felt this was a big project. It has the potential to be an excellent community project, but there are some issues that need to be looked at and some decisions to be made. So it was our feeling that we should bring it to the board so you see what's been brought to our attention as well. And one of the questions I would have, and I know we discussed it, and if you could just clarify also, the two different options that they are weighing right now are whether to, number one, raise it and rebuild.
Correct.
Or rehab the existing home. It's my understanding if the existing home is rehabbed, it would be a single family with a single family only, but if you wanted to do a two-family, you would have to rehab and add on.
Correct.
Or raise and build new completely.
Yeah, and the colored option I showed in front of you was what happens if you build two buildings that tie into the neighborhood. What if you tore down the front building and build a second building in back that looks like a barn, for example? Mm-hmm. That's been done in other communities, so it still looks like typical housing, but it can carry 4 families. So those are options. The land itself has the space in order to accommodate that. Obviously, that would be a 40B process to go through and getting the variances necessary to do that. So we can have the option of rehab what we have today, change it and put on a second floor and modify it and go through those type of requirements, or go for 40B and build 2 buildings that tie into the community. And maybe the fourth option is we split off the back of the property and sell it to a neighbor. So we have multiple options.
And through the chair, I would say that Habitat and Tim have been perfectly clear that they want the town and the community to be in support of whatever decision they make. So they're not pushing either decision. They're looking for input as to what we would like to see happen. It's my understanding that property's been vacant for at least 2 years.
Quite a while. It's in very tough shape. It's falling down on the inside, as you would expect for something that's been abandoned or foreclosed for a period of time.
So it is currently a detriment to the neighborhood. But the issue is, how are they going to go forward with either a single family or 2 family? And the other issue that we discussed was again, and Tim mentioned it, local preference. When we met, we asked if preference could be given to an Auburn family that is in need. And again, just to clarify, the families that would be selected through this process would have to be working because they have to have an income.
Correct, they have to have the
To pay.
affordability to pay.
So this
Correct.
is, there has to be a working family for the affordability to pay. Is your decision, one more question, just because it was my question, and I want everyone to hear this as well, the decision on whether to go with a single-family or a two-family duplex, is that also driven by funding? Because you now have to go out and actually raise the money to do this project, and I believe there was a difference in cost between the two projects?
Yeah, to be worth our effort to try to do the two-family, only because water's there, sewer's there, it lends itself, the economics work better, and you're able to serve two families instead of one. So that even though it's incrementally, it's not proportionate that it makes sense to do that second floor. And if the first floor is on, the first family is on the first floor, that allows for handicap accessibility, which there's a number of needs out there.
Mr. Grossman has a question.
Tim, you build the home, you hold the deed, you pay the taxes, and you see to it that the resident that's in the property is paying you on a monthly basis, correct?
That's correct. They pay into escrow and we pay from the escrow. So just as a bank, we're basically the bank.
Mr. Simonian.
This is a first for me, so I'm just asking, is this like if someone is going to rehab their own house, just all that's required is, the permits necessary to do the work?
If we stayed for a single family within the ranch, yes. If we change it to a two-family within that foundation, I believe that may be a different zoning requirement, being a multifamily.
Okay, and I don't know if this is something how does the Green Communities Act affect? Because I know you said that it's Energy Star compliant, but how does that affect your building process as well?
Yeah, we've been building Plantation Street as LEED compliant. We'll get LEED certification on that house. We have been doing Energy Star 3, so we're going a step and above, and basically have been building beyond the code for quite a while because of the needs of the family in setting them up for the next 30 years.
Thank you.
Great.
So the board members just received this information and tonight. So what I would ask is that board members look at the property, digest what we've just heard, and we will put this on the next agenda to discuss and give direction to the town manager moving forward. Our meeting is in 2 weeks, so
Excellent.
we'll have a discussion. Mr. Tolstrom, then Mr. Simonian.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there a timeline on this? Is there a deadline that you have to meet in order to get this changed over, the building built or rehabbed or whatever is going on here? Or is it pretty much open to whatever your program accounts for?
No, that's a good question. The Bank of America program does call for a one-year completion. However, if we make substantial modifications, we'll go back to Bank of America and say, look, it's not just a plain rehab. Here's what we need more time. So there's a one-year requirement, but I think that's negotiable back with the bank.
Thank you.
Simonian.
So I just want to make sure, at our next meeting, our discussion and guidance is going to be based on what's been discussed, either building new or rehab? Is that?
Building new rehab, whether it would be a single-family
Okay, all right.
duplex. He's got the options, yeah.
Okay.
And any members certainly are welcome to meet with Mr. Burney if they have any questions. I think he has. Mr. Burney, if you want to be recognized.
I do just want to make one thing clear, and I know that Tim did mention it. Anything that goes on other than rehab is going to be a comprehensive permit. And through my discussions with Habitat and the town manager's discussions, the Habitat for Humanity group would be looking for the Selectmen's support in applying for that comprehensive permit. So that's essentially a 40B filing. It's called a local initiative project, which is, they call them friendly 40Bs, where the town works with someone, they have some input on the design. So please take that into account when you do think about this. I want that to be clear up front. it doesn't make it a bad project. You're still dealing with all the income and requirements that Habitat has, but the selectmen would be requested to support a 40B filing through the zoning board.
Thank you. Mr. Holstrom?
I just want to be sure that, I know that in my neighborhood, there was, at one point, there was a in-law apartment added, so a variance had to be gotten, so I guess there's a little bit more of a process here than just saying, yeah, Habitat's there and they want to go with a duplex with a two-family. So I think there's going to be a little bit more to just reviewing this. I think the boards will have to get involved, find out what the zoning is, and find out what that neighborhood would be.
Yeah, that's normally the case, where we get support of the selectmen, then we work with a comprehensive permit, which basically elevates it to the ZBA. And then we work with the different variances that are required for that lot, for that build, and we seek out the different variances, which are public meetings, but it all starts with the support of the selectmen saying, yes, we support this, and we'd like to see it go this way.
And certainly if members don't feel they have enough information at our next meeting, we can continue it to the next meeting. It's just to start gathering information, and like I said, members certainly should be meeting with Mr. Burney to get additional information, and we can bring this up at the next meeting. Thanks so much for coming in.
Great, thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Give you a second to take your laptop.
Through the chair, while they are putting that away, we will continue to work with them as well and get more information so we can add to the discussion. But again, I think the main issues that the board needs to look at right now is, number one, whether they would support a single-family versus a duplex. A single-family can go forward with or without board support, but Habitat really does want to have the board support, even if it's a single-family. The board support is, they're really seeking that if they're going to go forward with a 40B or comprehensive permit process. And under the comprehensive permit process, as Adam said, there are a lot of opportunities to weigh in to what any conditions or requirements may be. So this would not be the end of it. It would really be the beginning of a long process, after which they still have to go out and do their fundraising.
Mr. Holstrom?
One quick question. This is being presented to us tonight. Do we have any other properties in town that are now Habitat?
Through the chair, I would say, we, as of 2 weeks ago, when we last met, or a month ago, no, this is the only one in town. They do have, I forget how many in Central Mass.
We built 34 so far within Metro West. We have 600 construction.
Thank you.
Will there be any other neighborhood abutter meetings, or is
We would make it notice on any meeting we have to the abutters, more formally at the next meeting, and we'll also probably do an outreach with them between now and then.
Yeah, I just advocate to anyone who's interested to make sure that they show up at the meeting. We ran into a situation last year. People had plenty of opportunity. They were calling the town manager, calling us, and it turned, through rumor and a lot of other things, it turned into something that it didn't need to be. So anyone in town who has questions, I strongly urge them to take advantage of those meetings.
Okay. We're going to move on. Thank you so much. Our next item is the Attorney General's Abandoned Housing Initiative, and we will have a brief presentation.
I'm back. Yeah, very brief.
Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce, this is Kieran Reed. She's from the Attorney General's office. She's been working with Darlene Coyle and Andy Pelletier through the Board of Health to bring this initiative to town, and she's going to brief you on the benefits and implications.
Good evening. Thank you all for inviting me to come and tell you a little bit about the Attorney General's Abandoned Housing Initiative. I'm an Assistant Attorney General in our Worcester office, and I handle the Abandoned Housing Initiative program for all of Worcester County. So, as Adam mentioned, we're in the very beginning stages of working with Auburn in this program, and I'm looking forward to having the chance to tell you all a little bit about the way that the program works and give you the chance to have any of your questions answered.
Okay, great.
I understand that we don't have a lot of time tonight, and that's fine. I'm going to try to answer as many of your questions as I can in the time that we have. But I will have business cards available, so if we don't get to anyone's question, please don't be shy about contacting me. I'm always happy to answer questions anytime.
Okay, great.
Not appear to be okay. So, gotta use this. So, as always, we have a little legal disclaimer. This isn't intended to provide you with legal advice. That's what you have town council for, and I'm just going to give you an outline of the program and the way it works and answer some questions for you. So the receivership statute is the heart of our program. This enables us to work with the community, such as Auburn. We work with many communities in Worcester County and throughout the state to assist the community in dealing with the abandoned and foreclosed and blighted property crisis. So this statute, we partner with a receiver, and I'll explain a little more about that later, to get these properties rehabilitated and free of sanitary code violations and back into usable form. I'm not going to make you read the fine print. The important part for tonight's presentation is the blue highlighted area here. When a petitioner, which in our case would be either the Attorney General's office and the town, or simply the Attorney General's office on its own, when we file a petition to enforce the sanitary code, we show the court that the violations at this property will not be promptly remedied unless a receiver is appointed. So in other words, we are showing the court that the town has already tried everything that's within its own power to do. We have attempted to work with the owners or the lien holders or any and all of the above, and it's simply not going to happen unless the court appoints a receiver. And you'll notice that part of the consideration in the statute itself is the court determines that such appointment is in the best interest of occupants residing in the property. So you might be wondering about how does that play with our abandoned housing initiative? Well, fortunately, in 2008, the appeals court handed down a decision in City of Boston v. Warchalska, and they determined that the receivership statute, which we've been talking about, is applicable to both vacant and occupied buildings. So we do have the authority to request to the court that a receiver be appointed to remedy sanitary code violations at a property, even if there are no occupants in the property. And that's what makes this program so useful, because in many cases, the properties that we're dealing with are properties in which the foreclosure process has started, but the bank hasn't completed the process. So the foreclosure process has started in that the bank has provided the homeowner notice that they are going to be foreclosing. The homeowner has vacated the home and is obviously no longer maintaining the home, but because the bank hasn't completed the foreclosure process, the bank isn't maintaining the home either. And the home tends to then fall into disrepair and cause a blight to the neighborhood, and that's where we can come in and really assist the community. The first step in the process, and this is about as far as we've gotten with Auburn so far, is that the town identifies the properties that it wants us to have a look at. So we do like to take a neighborhood approach where we can. If there are areas that are particularly clustered in terms of several of these abandoned properties being fairly close to each other, we've had very good success with that kind of targeted approach in other communities. But if the properties are more spread out, that doesn't in any way mean that we can't assist. So the town will determine which are the problem properties. Any of your inspectional services folks probably already know exactly which ones they're interested in, and they let us know which of those properties they would like us to look at. So the next step is that I actually personally go out with the inspectional services folks. Darlene and I have been on many property visits together. I will go out and take a look at the property. We will do a walk around. It's up to the community as to whether or not we enter the property. We leave that to the community's comfort level. I work with some communities that are hesitant to go inside a vacant property. which is completely understandable. In the vast majority of cases, that doesn't impair what we do at all, because generally we can see what we need to from the outside. I also work with some communities that have the attitude, well, if anyone off the street can walk right in and create a problem, then I can walk right in and see what we can do to prevent one. So that's something that we really leave up to the town's comfort level, and I'll follow that. So once we determine that a property is a good candidate for receivership, and that's part of the determination that I'll make with the town inspectional services folks, because not all abandoned properties are good candidates for rehab. We've all seen properties that are just too far gone to really be effectively rehabbed, and those are generally not good candidates for our program. But you know, you never know, some of them might be more workable than it appears at first, and that's one reason that we go and have a look. Then we start the process of finding a potential receiver. And the receiver can be someone, they can be an individual, they can be a for-profit developer, a nonprofit organization. We work with receivers in all of these categories throughout the state, and anyone with any kind of property management or construction experience can certainly apply to our office for consideration. So we do welcome suggestions from the community as well. If the community frequently works with a particular, construction company or a particular developer or maybe a community development corporation, we're always happy to take suggestions as to who might be a good receiver. Once we have a receiver identified, and part of that identification process is having the receiver take a look at the property, because we don't want to recommend someone to the court as a receiver if they're personally not interested in or don't think that they can make the property work. Once we have identified someone, our office will do a complete title search on the property, and we will identify the owner of record. We will identify anyone with a mortgage on the property, anyone with a lien. Because what we want to do is make sure that we can provide notice to any and every person or entity that has any kind of legal interest in that property. So what we do to provide notice is we contact all of those parties by certified mail. We send them notice as to the condition of the property, because as you probably have experienced, in many cases where a bank, a large mortgage bank, has started the foreclosure process but not completed it, many of the times these banks don't even know what they own. So it's very common for us to notify someone of conditions at this property, and they'll respond to us and say, we had no idea. So it's a very important step that we take to notify everybody. And of course, in some cases, they know perfectly well and aren't interested. But in many, many cases, what we do essentially doesn't need to go any further, because we do get a good response, a good rate of response from these demand letters. We have a lot of people coming forward and working with us to remedy what's wrong with the property. And at that point, once the property has been repaired and the town has issued a certificate of occupancy or otherwise declared that the property is again fit for human habitation, then we're all set. There's no need to take the property to court. But what we can do is that once we have sent out that letter, and if we don't get a response, or if we don't get the response that we want to, then we can bring a petition in either the housing court or district court to enforce the state sanitary code under that statute that I discussed earlier, and to appoint a receiver to correct the sanitary code violations at the property. And that is why we work to find and identify a receiver prior to even sending any notice to the property owner, because we want to be able to put a case together quickly and to move into court quickly if and when it becomes necessary. So that's why we do it in that order. So this is basically an outline of the way that the process works. The town identifies the property and refers it to us. We take a look at the property, we do the title search, we identify a potential receiver, and we provide notice to the owners and the parties in interest. And If we have a cooperative owner, we can work with them to get the property repaired and the property is put back in compliance with the code. It's no longer a threat to the public health and safety, and it's back on the municipality's tax rolls, which in many cases, some of these properties have not been. If we have an uncooperative owner, then we work up our case and we bring it to court. The receiver is appointed and the receiver does the work to bring the property back in compliance with the code. Now, the receiver does incur costs, as you'll imagine, associated with the rehab of the property. One of the nice things about this program is that the receiver, under the statute, records a priority lien at the Registry of Deeds in the amount of his or her costs. So let's say the receiver spends $100,000 to rehab a particular property. The receiver takes priority for getting repaid over everyone except for any municipal liens. So the receiver does jump over the whoever has the mortgage on the property, but any municipal liens will be paid back first. In practice, what we found is that the receiver tends to go ahead and pay off those municipal liens immediately upon being appointed so that he or she can get permits to start the work, and then the cost of repaying those liens to the town is simply rolled into the receiver's lien. So once the work is completed by the receiver, the property owner does have the right and the ability to come forward and to pay off the receiver's lien. As you can imagine, we do not see that happening very often. So the other way in which a receivership can conclude is the receiver will report to the court that the work has been completed. They will ask for final approval of their costs and the ability to foreclose on that priority lien. So the property will then go to auction. The receiver will bid at auction in the amount of his or her lien. So going back to our example of the receiver who spent $100,000, let's say someone comes to the auction and the next highest bidder is $80,000. The receiver then ends up with title to the property free and clear for the amount of his or her costs. If someone comes to the auction and bids $110,000, then the receiver recoups all of his or her costs. The highest bidder takes title to the property free and clear, and the remaining $10,000 goes to the mortgagee or whoever is further down in line. So it's a fairly simple process, but as you can imagine, after we send out the demand letter, there are any number of ways in which a property can be resolved, and frankly, most of them don't involve needing to go to court. So our aim is to get these properties rehabilitated, to get them cleaned up, back on the tax rolls, back into a state in which they're not threatening the community, and there are many ways in which we can get there. So this is a map of the properties that are in Auburn that have been referred to our office so far. It's actually overlaid on some data from the Warren Group, which represents the hot spots. The darker the color, so the closer you get to red, that's a higher concentration in that area of properties that are distressed. And by distressed, they mean a foreclosure filing has been started, or the properties are somewhere in the foreclosure process. So you can see up in the northeast corner there, we do have several properties that have been referred to us within that kind of hot spot. We have another hot spot in which we don't have any referrals yet, but you can see sometimes they do tend to cluster in an area, sometimes they're a little more spread out. The properties that are depicted in green, the green dots, are properties that have resolved since referral. Either, I believe in most cases, the owners have done work at the property, or the property has changed hands and the new owner has performed the work. The red spots are the ones that still need some attention. And zoomed in on that little northeast corner there, it's a little hard to see from here, but we've got the actual plot of land that belongs to each property marked. So the green ones on that side are the properties that have been resolved. The red ones are the ones that have not yet been resolved. But when you look at it in that way, and our team, AHI team paralegal, has recently had some training on some mapping software, and he loves to show what all he can do with it. you really get a sense of how these properties can impact a neighborhood. Because when you have a cluster of them together, or when you have maybe 2 or 3 properties in, a 2-block radius, it really brings down the entire neighborhood, both visually and in some cases economically, because it depresses property values for the neighbors. So when we work on a cluster of properties, we can really have a much bigger targeted impact, and that's been a great way for us to handle properties up in the Merrimack Valley, and we've had success with that approach elsewhere as well. So I just have a couple of pictures for you to conclude the presentation, just some before and afters of properties that our team has handled. This is one of the Attorney General's favorite priorities in the office. She is very committed to the success of this particular program, and she likes to refer to it as her favorite recycling project. So she frequently tours properties that have been rehabbed under this program, and I've also been with her on tours where we've toured the before houses. So she's, very committed to this property, this program, and not afraid to get dirty in the process. So this is a property that we have worked on up in Lawrence. You can see the difference between the exterior before and after. And it can make a dramatic visual difference in a neighborhood. But we don't just handle the outside of the property, of course. This is a property that was recently completed in Holyoke, and this is actually one of my personal favorites, because something that's personally important to me is preserving any historic or architectural character that a property may have. We're so lucky here in Massachusetts to have a wonderful range of really interesting properties, and it's not the aim of our program to make them all look like identical boxes. So you can see this is the property before. We've got some issues with the roof area. The property's boarded up, and nobody wants to live next door to a house that looks like that. This is a picture of the interior of the property. As you can see, this is very, very common for us to go into properties and we find that they've been trashed either by the occupants who left or by people coming in and partying in the property after it became abandoned. You can see in the bathroom picture there that the wall has been broken into. Most of these properties have had their copper plumbing stripped. That's also something that we see very frequently. And you can see after rehab through the AHI program, the property has kept all of the gorgeous details that it had. It's a much more welcoming looking property. You're not going to be afraid to walk down the street past that house. The interior has been totally renovated. It's, not high-end finishes. That's not what the program is about. We're aiming for livable. We want clean, sanitary, safe. We want someone to be able to live there, but certainly a far cry from what it used to look like. And this is just a picture of a press event with the Attorney General at that particular property following the rehab. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them in the time that we have left, and otherwise, please don't hesitate to contact me afterward. I'm always happy to answer any questions that I can, and if you ask me something I can't answer, I will find you someone who knows the answer.
Thank you. And there's no board action required tonight. This was a presentation to see that the manager is moving forward with the goals of dealing with these properties. Did you want to?
Yeah, and I want to thank the Attorney General's office for coming in and presenting tonight. Again, the town administration's been working with the Attorney General's office on participating in this program for several months now. This came about primarily as a result of the Board of Selectmen expressing concern to us in the past year, often, about abandoned properties, vacant properties, problem properties, properties that appear to be a danger to or a threat to public safety or public health. And so our inspectors also felt that this was critical from a health perspective as well as a building perspective. We've got code violations, we've got potential health issues. So this initiative provides another tool or a mechanism for the town to participate in partnership with the Attorney General's office to stabilize our neighborhoods, to address the problem properties, to identify, which we have done, those which are the most egregious of those public safety and public health issues. And at the same time, while we're stabilizing the neighborhoods and stabilizing these properties, we also have the opportunity to recapture tax revenues that are currently not coming in. So we can put the properties back on the tax rolls, get the taxes, get the municipal liens, and again, it's so critical to stabilize the neighborhood. So this is something we wanted to continue to work on. We wanted to bring it to your attention. Darlene Coyle and Andy Pelletier have worked very hard on this, and Adam Burney and Nick are working on it as well, the entire department. It's an important program to us, and we wanted the board to be aware of what we were working on, why we're working on it, and the type of program that is a tool. It's a great opportunity for us to participate.
Mr. Grossman.
Yes, I spoke to Nick earlier today. I had a resident approach me this morning whom I didn't know. I was in the bank, and he came up to me and expressed a house that was behind his was in foreclosure, in distress. The boards were falling apart on the building, that they had been in and stripped the whole house of copper. And when I went to his office, he had a whole list of those houses which are under foreclosure and so on. What kind of time frame are we under before we get involved with something like this?
Through the chair, I will let the Attorney General's office, but the administration's been involved for 6 to 8 months now anyways on this. The identification of the properties took some time because there are a lot of different factors that we have to look into. Not all of the properties that we identified were necessarily eligible for this program. So now that we've done the identification, do you want to explain the time frame on moving forward with the next steps?
Sure, and fundamentally, I will give you the lawyer's answer, which is it depends. We can move fairly quickly on the properties that have already been referred to us. We have gone through the process of identifying the owners and the lien holders of record on all of those properties, and we basically can get the letters to notify those people of the issues with their properties sent out as soon as I can write them. We've just been holding off on doing that at the town's request until after we had a chance to meet with you tonight. So once the letters go out, we do allow some time for responses to come in, because frequently we are writing to large mortgage banks, and the address that we have isn't always necessarily the address at which people are working who have authority to respond to these kind of requests. So it can take some time for the letters that we send to get where they need to go. Usually I will allow a couple of weeks for responses, just to give time for mailing and time for inter-office mail if needed. That would depend on the state of the particular property as well. I would allow less time for a property that was truly an imminent danger, and more time for a property that maybe didn't have quite as many violations. So, there again, it depends, but we do like to try and get things moving as quickly as possible, and we do like to identify the receivers prior to sending out letters. So that's something that probably the next step in the process would be for me to talk to some of our potential receivers and arrange a time to actually do a site visit to the properties to make sure that we are ready to go as soon as we can go.
Anything else from any board members? Did you have anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And you say you have some business cards that we
I
can
do.
contact you? Please.
I do.
Through the chair, while we're putting this away, I should also mention that the properties that were identified were done by town administration in concert with the police chief, the fire chief, the inspectors, health, public health, because there are a lot of different factors that we need to look at. And we were concerned with abandoned vacant properties, we're concerned with activity, illegal activity in those properties, and obviously we've seen a lot of the properties, as Mr. Grossman mentioned, that had the copper stripped right out of them. We're concerned about potential fire from anyone being in those buildings. So there are a lot of different factors that went into our statistical analysis of all of the properties that we looked at and how we identified. We were asked to come up with 10.
Mr. Pelletier, did you want to add something?
I would. Mr. Grossman, you mentioned that a citizen gave you a list of properties. I would encourage anybody who gets a list, either on this board or citizens who have properties they're concerned with, please contact either myself or Darlene, who spearheaded this, or Mr. Antanavica. Will work as a team and we'll get that property. We'll either assess it and get it on the list, or we will try to deal with it internally.
I think Mr. Grossman just wants to clarify the contact he had.
I did not say that I had a list.
It was
I
one.
said, when I went to the office to speak to Adam, he had a list in the office.
He spoke with one
Of those that are
resident.
under foreclosure.
Right.
I was just citing one gentleman that approached me today.
We are finding them. We gave the Attorney General a list initially. Since then, I think we've discovered 3 new ones. The list is dynamic. It's changing. Anybody who has a property of concern, please let us know. We'll look into it and either, like I said, either assess it and get it on the list or deal with it internally.
Through the chair, we had, either 1 year ago or 2 years ago, we had a home that was that was considered hazardous off of Central Street, I believe, Central. And we had to tear it down. If you recall, it was behind another residence and so on. Was this program enforced then, and could something have been done rather than our nickel of having to tear it down to remove the property?
That property was taken down under Chapter 111, 122, 127. There were multiple chapters that were assigned to this, Mass General laws, and we responded the way we responded because it was an imminent threat. There was no time to do this. We didn't notify, we notified the owner, and we notified everybody else after the fact. There was that property could not have waited until we ran it through this system. 127 allows the town, the Board of Health, to step in and abate imminent threats.
Thank you. Good to go. Our next item is a continued hearing for alteration of premises for a liquor license, Periwinkle's Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as J. Anthony's Italian Grill. Is there a motion to reopen the hearing?
So, second.
All those in favor of reopening the hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Good evening, Mr. O'Brien. I'm just going to give you an idea of how I'd like this hearing to go, which direction. We are addressing the alteration of premises. We're not going to have any discussion on an entertainment license, whether it be indoors or outdoors. I'd like to see us address the 2 issues that were raised at the last hearing, the first being the site plan and whether it needed Auburn Planning Board review, which Mr. Antanavica enclosed a letter, and will address that. And then I would assume that you will address the issue of the separation of licenses, one issued by the town of Auburn and one issued by the town of Oxford. And just because this hearing was continued, just in an abundance of caution, but it was more than 2 years ago, I did file a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest with the town clerk's office. The issue coming before this board was the alteration of premises liquor license. What responsibility do you have in taking action and making a decision? I am one of a 5-member board to take action on a liquor license application. Describe the relationship or affiliation with someone involved. My son worked at Periwinkle's Pub and Restaurant as a dishwasher approximately 2 years ago. No one from Periwinkle's contacted me, nor did I contact anyone regarding the end of his employment. And additionally, any comments where there is low risk of undue favoritism or improper influence. The license was initially issued in November of 2012. It was a simple application at the time. I participated and treated the applicant fairly. So that has been filed. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll hear on the site plan issue first. That was an issue that was raised, and we can, I think, do away with that right away if Mr. Antanavica wants to come up and address the site plan issue. Did you get a copy of that letter?
I did, and I
Great.
presume that all the members have that.
Yes,
same
yeah, so
thing.
we can just
Okay.
do away with this issue first.
Hello, members of the board.
I believe in front of you, you have a memo that I wrote from my office regarding the site plan requirements for the parking requirements of J. Anthony's. I believe there was some confusion as to what the town of Oxford had approved and then also what the town of Auburn's parking requirements were. In doing the review of this, I did a specific review of the items that were located on the town of Auburn side. We did agree on a location of the town line going through the restaurant and the bar itself. In doing that, I took into consideration the number of seats that were within that area. Also, I took into consideration the number of proposed seats for the outdoor area that they are proposing here, and also the number of parking spaces that would be taken away by the construction of this new outdoor seating area. When doing that, if you read the memo fully, what it says is that they do comply with our parking requirements. And by doing this, and the location of the outdoor seating area does not change the parking circulation at all, so it does not require a planning board review for site plan.
So do any members have any questions on that? It's been reviewed by Mr. Antinovic, and the reason they're before us tonight is because it did not trigger planning board approval or it's planning board review. So that issue has been resolved. So the parking issue and whether it needed to be reviewed by Auburn Planning Board is resolved, and the answer is no, it does not. And there is adequate parking. Thank you, Mr. Antinovic.
You're welcome.
Mr. O'Brien, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What was that other issue? And can Nick help me out on that one, too?
You're on your own on that one.
Okay.
Although I do believe Mr. Antinovic had been in contact with the ABCC early on in this issue.
I did contact the ABCC, and they indicated that we're on our own, basically, to sort out the other issue. I did get some information from Mr. Valatico's CPA, and he looked into the issue of the split license, 2 different towns, 2 different tax rates, and he had a prior client in a similar situation. In that situation, DOR gave him an informal letter. It wasn't a binding letter, but it was an informal letter that where the majority town, having the majority of the building, had a different tax rate, lower tax rate. The minority town had a higher tax rate. For DOR purposes, they suggested that they would split it by a ratio. And in that particular opinion, the ratio is somewhere around 67% to 33%. I'm not suggesting that that is what's going to happen here, because what he also did was ask for formal interpretation of the application of that law as it applies to this situation. I have copies of the letter that he sent to my client indicating that he's requesting from DOR the opinion. I'd be happy to share them with you. I apologize for giving this to you tonight, but I just got it today, and as you can see, it was written on the 23rd.
If you can just give us a second to review this.
Thank you.
Okay, you can continue.
I know that Mr. Pappas is trying to work on this and get it squared away, and hopefully we can get the guidance of DOR and do the right thing. In the meantime, I understand that the meals taxes go through DOR and then are distributed to the town. So I don't think that we're in a situation where the horse is going to leave the barn, because money's still being put into that escrow account with DOR. And even if we have to augment that in order to bring your percentage up, in that case, I don't think that's going to be hard to do.
Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Mr. Grossman?
Yes, I brought it up in the last meeting, and I wonder why. It's a simple fact of just running a separate register for Oxford and Auburn at the other end of the bar would take care of all problems. And why are you refusing to do that?
We're not refusing to do anything. We're trying to find out the right way to do it.
That would be pure and simple as to what Auburn's share should be and what Oxford's share should be.
Well, with the background of the fact that the DOR had an opinion that was marginally different from that, we wanted to find out what the right way was going to be able to do and what they would administer. They're administering this thing, basically. They're the in-between people.
Mr. Simone?
And we're not saying we're trying to evade a tax. It's
I understand
money.
Mr. Grossman's point, and
Yeah.
I see both sides of it. I'm willing to wait for a ruling from the DOR. I mean, if they seem to be the only ones in this entire situation that have dealt with this before. What I can't understand is that in 2013, with the technology we have and the fact that they've dealt with this situation before, why it's dragged on as long as it has. But again, I don't work for them. I never have. I don't know what they're up against. I'm sure they have quite a caseload or whatever it is. So I'm willing to wait until we hear from the DOR to resolve this.
Are you suggesting we continue the hearing, or are you?
I have no, I mean, they've been doing business.
Right.
And
right.
I
mean, this could take up to 3 months. I can't see.
Right. I think it's reasonable to, as he said, it's not that they're not paying taxes. They are. And if there is something that requires to be adjusted after the fact, they're not standing here trying to get out of it. They're saying that they're willing to make that adjustment. So I think that, that's reasonable.
Do you know if there'll be food served in the outdoor patio area?
Food served in the outdoor patio.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do any members have any questions, comments?
Just feel strongly that there should be separate register for Oxford as well as Auburn.
We may end up with that, Mr. Grossman. I'm not excluding it. It's whatever they say, we'll bring it to you folks. We'll show you. And I'm sure that we'll be able to satisfy you, one way or the other.
So hearing what Mr. Grossman is saying, if this could take possibly up to 3 months to receive a response, would the applicant be willing to operate a second register on the Auburn side while we're waiting for an opinion? And you're welcome to consult with him.
I have no problem with that. As far as when we open the outdoor cafe, it's very, very easy to do the 7%. The problem we're having is how do you charge at the bar 10 people 7% and the other 25 or 20 people 6 1/4. When we open a cafe, there's no problem having a register and a computer because that's all of Auburn. We charge them 7%. The problem we're trying to do with the Commonwealth is to find out if we can give the whole bar to Auburn and the tongues, which are tabletops, to Oxford. But you can't go there. You three would be paying 7%, and you four would be paying 6 1/4%. That's the problem we're having.
Yeah,
so we have no problem doing a separate register. But what we want to do is do it to where everyone in that one area is paying 7%, and the other people in another area
are paying 6 1/4. That, as far as two towns, if it was both 6 1/4, it'd be no problem whatsoever. You come out with a percentage, you get yours, Oxford gets theirs. I have no problem in paying the taxes. We gotta do it every month anyways. But we're having a problem with 10 people at the bar paying 7%. So we're trying to get a section to where it's with the Commonwealth. Or we could be in trouble for paying too less to one town and too much to another town. But I have no problem doing a separate register.
If I can ask you, do you do a lot of serving of food in the bar area as well?
Yeah, we're like 80% food, you know, in the whole restaurant, counting the lounge. It isn't, and it's not a register, it's a whole computer system. So when my servers order, it isn't where, okay, you got to register and you're going 7%. It's a whole new system we have to get. Like just the cafe area or the patio is going to be a separate computer, and that's easy. It's the 10 people, so we're trying to make a section to where everyone's being, you know, where this half is paying 7 and the other half, not knowing it, is paying 6 1/4.
So I'd like to ask your attorney a question. If I understand your proposal, and having heard from Mr. Valatico, he's willing to have a separate register for the cafe, the outdoor seating, which would address the issue. And the proposal or the discussion with the DOR would be to have a percentage of all sales go to Auburn and Oxford, and the Auburn sales would include that additional 0.75 meals tax. So if they're, I'm just gonna do easy math. If we're gonna use easy numbers for right now, say half the meals are being served in Auburn, half the meals are being served.
It'd be easier.
It would, I'm just, well, for discussion purposes, it could be 30-70, I don't know, but for easy math, 50-50. So if you're serving 50% of the meals in Auburn, 50% of the meals in Oxford, you're running one register. The proposal would be to, whatever you collect, split that in half, add an additional 0.75 to the Auburn side. Because that's, I mean, that's...
Yeah, we're going to charge you 7%. In other words, we're going to charge you 7%. What we're after from the Commonwealth is to see if we can get the tables in the Oxford, and Auburn gets the whole bar, and that would be fair. That's all we're trying to do. But as far as, like I said, the patio, that's easy. 7%, it's a percentage. We want the Commonwealth to say to us, okay, you're going to give 12% to Auburn, you're going to give this percent, or however they come out, 40, whatever it is. We just want it so it's legal, so when, and then all that other money, that 0.75%, will be distributed to anyways, because that's all put away for you in Oxford.
And it's not the issue of the extra 0.75% for Auburn and Oxford having a different rate. It's the understanding of the law that these licenses needed to be kept separately and applying the same standard to every license holder. So certainly the willingness to separate the outdoor patio area, which is 60-plus seats, if I recall, we're making progress.
And that's very easy, because that's a whole different computer, so that'd be very easy for us.
All right, so I'm going to hear from Mr. Simonian first, then I'm going to hear from Mr. Antinovica, so if you could.
Yeah, I have a question, because I know we went through this in the early part of this, and the updated drawing that we have, I believe this is the one that you came back to us after there was a question about where the actual town line was. It appears on the updated drawing that the entire bar area is in fact in Auburn. So if that's the case, couldn't you just separate it out anyway without having to go to the DOR and do what you were suggesting anyway? If the entire bar area is in fact in Auburn, wouldn't you be able to do that now?
Just
That seems, I mean, that seems to be, I think there was some ambiguity about where that line fell, but I think that it was determined that your entire bar was, in fact, in Auburn, so.
90% of it.
Just for clarification for Mr. Simonian's question, looking at this drawing, and I think you referred to them, the line goes through here, these tables off to the right, those are still in the bar area, they're just stand-up tables.
Yes.
So, Mr. Simonian, the
That's part of the
tables
bar, okay.
right, that go right to the door, those are included in the bar area, and those are in Oxford. If it was that easy, just that line, and he's looking at just the actual bar, but I'm pointing out that it's the tables that are in the Oxford side that are still in the, what we refer to as the bar area.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because
I thought we were
you enter the
specific.
bar from over here.
If that's the case, I'm still not even sure if, again, I do think that the deal, because I could certainly see the case where someone would purchase something in the bar area and then, some friends join them, hey, we're going to take this to our table. It happens all the time.
Yeah, we didn't say it was going to be easy.
Right.
We're just going to follow the law. If I could hear from Mr. Antinovica.
No, actually, the point that I was going to make was the same as Selectman Simeon's. I was looking at the line and the way that it was divided and determined by the applicant surveyor, that the bar itself was completely on the Auburn side and that there were only several tables that were left on the Oxford side.
Yeah, but the tables are, those are in the, what we call the bar area, but they're still, so you're still going through the doorway and you're in the bar area.
Correct.
So I just wanted to clarify that for Mr. Simonian. Mr. Holstrom.
As much as I agree with what's going on here tonight, but I think what we should do is we should move this along. I think we've spent a lot of time on this tonight. They're requesting a letter of ruling regulation with that 830 CMR. Let's ask for a report in 3 months. Let's move this on. Let's get going on this.
Okay. So I'll just comment. I could certainly support this with the agreement to put a separate cash register for the outdoor patio area. Revisit this in 3 months once we get a ruling from DOR and an additional ruling from ABCC, but that would allow construction of this outdoor patio. And they're still putting, there may be an additional responsibility if the DOR makes a determination that Auburn
Is owed more.
So just to address a couple of the issues that I had at the last hearing, we want to make sure that there's only that single access to the outdoor patio area and that patio area is staffed. We had that discussion. I mean, to control underage drinking, it's fine to have, waitresses coming in and out. We would like to see someone monitoring that outdoor patio area. And that's the same standard we put on another license holder when they requested an outdoor patio area. It's just too easy for underage drinking in an unmonitored location. Correct. Mr. Grossman.
And the outside patio area is only accessed only by the inside, except for, I believe there's supposed to be a doorway for handicapped.
One gate in the front for
Right.
handicap.
And that will only be used for handicapped
That's it.
access? Is there any public comment? Do you have anything else, Mr. O'Brien?
I think we're
Any other board comment? I'd entertain a motion to either close or continue the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion on closing the hearing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is there a motion regarding the application?
Motion to approve the alteration of the premises, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of these conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void. And we'll also add that another condition besides what is already here would be that we will revisit this in 3 months when the report from the DOR is received.
And that he's agreed to run a separate register
And-
for the entire outdoor patio,
And a
right?
separate register for the outdoor patio will be used.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
Too much common sense.
Moving on, we have the School Buildings Committee, a presentation on the Auburn Middle School project. Welcome, and if you would like to introduce those who are here with you tonight as well, I would appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Package in the PowerPoint for everybody there. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Imsey, if you want to join us, you're welcome to come up to the table here.
There's two of them there. There's
Oh, all right.
top and bottom.
Yep.
Let's just wait 1 second till we
Sure.
clear out the room a little bit.
Thank you.
Do you want to close this out? I assume yours is down here. No.
Take that
Well, I
and
think
then pass the other
this is
down.
ongoing.
You go top one
They're
and
gonna-
bottom.
just going to give us the full presentation.
Okay, what am I taking? Yeah, okay. Yeah, me too.
There, yeah.
You scare them away?
Slideshow view. Oops. Great. You leaving?
Getting shortchanged there.
Interesting.
So dehydrated, I'll be happy making this.
There's water over there. She's gonna. If this is happening another time before, the state should have already had an answer for it. It's insane.
If we're ready to go, and if, again, if you could make your introductions.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Selectmen, Mrs. Jacobson and Mrs. Kwiatkowski. Thank you for the opportunity on behalf of Mark Imsey, Chairperson, and the entire School Building Committee to present to you an update regarding the Auburn Middle School building project. I'd like to introduce those we have in attendance this evening. We have Eric Moore from Lamro Pagano, who will be part of tonight's presentation, as well as Paul Needler from Skanska USA Builders, who is the owner's project manager, who will also be helping in the presentation. I've noted Mr. Imsey, who is here as SBC Chairperson, Mr. Page, who is SBC Vice Chairperson, as well as Vice Chairperson of the School Committee, and School Committee members, Mr. Laurie, Mrs. Gribbins, Mrs. Gibbrey, and I've mentioned Mr. Page. From the very start of this process, the SBC sought to engage in an open and transparent process, as evidenced by the numerous meetings that were held collaboratively with the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, School Committee, and School Building Committee, as well as the many SBC meetings that were held, each of which was open to the public, and agendas and minutes posted on our website, as well as any documents that were reviewed. The goal of the SBC was to study various options as required by MSBA, ultimately recommending the most educationally appropriate yet fiscally sound option, which will educate a building that will educate the Auburn Middle School students in for decades to come. The presentation that we have for you this evening highlights that recommended option, which is to build new on the West Street site. Before I turn it over to Mr. Moore, with your permission, Madam Chair, I would like to thank the board for your past as well as your anticipated future support of this project. So with your permission, I will turn it over to Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board, for having us here tonight. I'm going to start with a little bit of process that we've been through to get to where our current status, and then I'll go through a little bit of the site and building design features, and then we have some renderings of the proposed building. First, the process. We were required to go through a fairly lengthy process by MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority. Not only did we study the existing site from the standpoint of a baseline repair option, we studied addition renovation of the existing Swanson Road facility. We looked at new construction at Swanson Road. We looked at new construction on 2 other sites in town, and finally settled on the West Street site as the preferred option, with the addition of an additional parcel of land, which the town has negotiated, and contingent upon a successful vote at town meeting and at the ballot, that parcel will become part of the site, and that enables us, with about 13 acres, to have a suitable site for development of the building and site features. One of the main factors in the selection of West Street new construction on that site was the fact that it allowed construction of the new building without any impact to the existing school site. It didn't require modular classrooms for the students to use. It's a relatively painless construction period, if there can be such a thing. So having said that, I'll begin. Everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with the West Street site. Route 12 runs along the bottom here. West Street heads off to the north here. We have the Randall Building, the Masonic Lodge, the Life Care Center, and the Fire Training Complex. The proposed building is located behind the Randall's building, which is proposed to remain, along with the Fire Training Complex. The main entrance is from West Street. There's parking in the front and around the building. The building's a two-story design, and there are multi-use playing fields here, smaller practice field here, school garden. The site is a response to some of the issues that are present at Swanson Road. If you're familiar with Swanson Road, you know that at bus pickup and drop, parent pickup times, there's a lot of congestion there, a lot of traffic. So we tried to resolve that, and one of the ways we did that was to create 2 separate entrances. One is located here. This would be for the bus traffic. The other is in the back here. That would be parent pickup. Now the buses, all the traffic would come in from West Street, and the buses would come in and queue up along here, 6 or 7 buses at a time. They would drop off, and then they would turn out here and exit out to West Street. Parents would come in the same way, but they would travel around here, and they would queue up all along this roadway till they get to this point where the student would be dropped off or picked up, and then the parents would continue out and exit at an exit-only lane out to West Street. Some of the site features, as I mentioned, the multi-use field. We have an add alternate to make that a synthetic turf field, similar to what you have at the high school. Base bid would be a natural irrigated field, but if the bids come in and there's adequate money in the budget, this would be synthetic turf. There is an outdoor patio area here adjacent to the cafeteria that could be used in good weather for dining. We have an outdoor classroom area here that would have wireless access, and it opens up to the classrooms that are located around this courtyard, the tech classrooms, the science labs, the art classroom. So again, in good weather, the students could go out and use that paved area as a learning space. As I mentioned before, a practice field, a school garden. This is a sustainable school. It'll be Mass CHIPS registered. We're getting 2 additional reimbursement points from the state because of that. So the school garden is one of those features. By having that, it gains us points and allows us to satisfy that requirement for a sustainable school. Parking, we have about total 160 spaces or so, compared to about 90 right now at the Swanson Road site. The parking areas and driveways will connect to Masonic Circle. Masonic Circle comes in from Southbridge Street here, and this would be connected, but there would be a gate there, a steel gate that would normally be closed. We've had a traffic study done, and that was the recommendation of the traffic consultant. They had another recommendation too, that these signals at West Street be retimed, because you do get a lot of traffic coming from Leicester area here to points south and eastbound. So that retiming would allow the traffic to flow more smoothly during the morning and afternoon peak hours. The floor plans are basically a response to the district's team-based curriculum. I won't go through and identify all the spaces, but I can tell you that there are 4 wings. 3 of them are typical classroom wings like this, and each wing serves 2 teams of about 100 students each, and the teams would stay in that wing. All of their core-based academics would be in that cluster of classrooms. It also includes special ed areas. It includes teacher areas where the teachers can meet and prepare for classroom print. Includes 7 general classrooms, and also 2 science labs with a shared prep room. And then the fourth wing has technology workshops, computer classrooms, and these are utility and mechanical spaces. We worked with the Safety Advisory Committee at great length to develop and improve upon this plan. They had quite a bit of input into safety issues, access control, how does somebody get into the building. We have this locked off vestibule, so that's similar to the high school. Somebody will come in, they'll be able to communicate to somebody in the general office, and only then will they be buzzed through into the building. The plan is divided into public spaces on the right side. You have your gymnasium and your cafeteria, auditorium here, and then on the left of the lobby here, you have your administrative areas and your teaching spaces. So these areas can be closed off on weekends or when the community uses the public areas. Upstairs we have similar plans for the two teaching clusters. We have a media center here, another computer classroom here, and then these are basically the taller spaces. We talked about the gymnasium and cafeteria. Typical classrooms will be dehumidified, and again, we're not air conditioning them because we get points for not air conditioning classrooms toward green schools and sustainable design. But it will increase the comfort levels so that during those days in May and September, it will dehumidify the air and make things more comfortable. We have 3 large windows in each classroom, and those will provide natural daylighting. We're trying to harvest the natural daylighting, and we have sensors that will automatically turn off a row of lights at the outside wall when the sun is shining. We have some built-in millwork along the outside wall for storage of books and materials. We also have another large millwork piece on the corridor wall, and that'll have teacher wardrobe and storage of large materials, large format boards and poster paper and that sort of thing. Each classroom will be equipped with an interactive projector, an LCD projector, and whiteboards on both walls. And they're flexible. They can be set up in a number of different ways. The furniture we show here, tables, but in many instances we're seeing hexagonal tables and different types of layouts that will can be utilized in these rooms. Just to go back for one moment, I mentioned the safety advisory input. They also had a great deal of input with traffic, parking. We got into door hardware, communicating doors between classrooms and the type of hardware in those. We really had a great deal of comment and communication with them regarding the safety issues in the school. Just quickly, we have some renderings. The top one here is the proposed entrance coming in from West Street, and you can see the bus queue along here, the main entrance, the gymnasium, and the classroom wing over on the right. The bottom view is from the multi-use field, and this is the parent pickup drop-off entrance with the cafeteria to the right. The media center is in this area, and then the classroom wings here. This is a closer view of the main entrance. You can see the corner of the gym, administration, media center up here. And this is a closer view of the back entrance with the cafeteria, with some seating wall along here, and this is that paved landscaped area. This is a view of the band room to the south. And finally, the outdoor classroom. This is looking down from the second floor classroom at the fixed seating walls, and again, some of these classrooms that open right out to that and can utilize that space. This is a computer-generated animation. We see West Street here, so we're coming in over the Randall building toward the main entrance here. As we pan around, we have the gymnasium on the left here, administration, main entry. We'll come around above the practice field here, so we'll have the band room over here. These are the locker room areas. The gym sticks up a little taller. Cafeteria area here, that outdoor terraced area with the seating walls. And this lobby area will be a skylit lobby, so we'll get some natural light into those interior spaces. Then as we come around the classroom area and down into the courtyard, you can see the outdoor classroom area, and then we start again. With that, I'll turn things over to Paul Niebler.
Years back, many communities were building schools. There were no policies, regulations, or standards that were really being followed by the state. This resulted in the state finding themselves to be about $14 billion in debt in school construction. So in 2004, they put a moratorium in place that stopped all school construction, and the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, was created. What they did is they paid off the debt, and they created these regulations to help them oversee the different community school constructions throughout the Commonwealth. Their main goal is funding affordable, sustainable, efficient schools in partnership with the local communities that participate in their programs. What you're looking at here is actually a schedule that the MSBA is using, a 4-year process that this school is going through. Understand you can't see it. I can't even see it really on the screen, but we have supplied you with the key highlights of the dates of what's coming up. On April the 3rd, we will go to the MSBA Board of Directors meeting, at which point they'll review the final feasibility schematic design and approve this project. Once that happens, it will come back to Auburn. On May the 7th, you've got a town meeting. It will have to go in front of town meeting. Once it passes that, you'll have on May the 21st a ballot vote. When and if it passes at the ballot vote, we would immediately go into design and construction documents, hopefully starting construction in April of 2014 with the goal of having the school open for the school year starting in 2015. A lot of people have asked what happens if this project is not approved at the ballot. What you're looking at is actually a policy statement from MSBA. Cliff Note version is, once the Board of Directors approves this project, Auburn has 120 days to get it passed at the ballot. If it is not passed at the ballot, there are a few steps that you'll have to go through, but more than likely, and they have stated in writing, that you will be put at the back of the line, and you will have to wait with a new statement of interest and wait for them to ask you to participate from that point forward. And just as a note on that, there's a little over 1,000 statements of interest waiting. So it could be a long wait. What you're looking at here is a 20-year financing at a 3% bond rate. We've used the 3% bond rate as just a case scenario. I think right now Auburn has done some bonding at a little over 1.8%, but we did want to show it at 3%. You've got a total project cost of $44.5 million. I do want to elaborate on that a little bit. That's including approximately $5.7 million in contingencies. We have put money in there for any possible scenario that we can possibly think that may come up during this process. It's to cover those costs when and if. They should not come up, but the money is there. So what we've done is created this worst case scenario, total project cost, which includes your construction, your design, all of your fees and everything that encompasses from beginning to end. Auburn has been approved by MSBA at a 58.61 reimbursement rate for all eligible costs. What this relates to at the 3% bond rate at 20 years is this chart that we've actually created where people can go. It is public knowledge or out there for the public to view, where they can go, they can look at the valuation of their home, they can see that if all costs were expended on this project at a 3% bond rate over 20 years, how much their tax increase would go for the first year, the second year, and then years 3 through 20. The average home here in Auburn is approximately $222.5 thousand. Your annual cost for your first year of this project, again, the figures I'd given you, would be $46 the first year, $52 the second year, and $175 increase for years 3 through 20. We do have the Auburn school website is set up. They've got information on there. They've also got a link to the Skanska website, which is the second auburn.k12.ma.us, where you can go, you can ask questions. All documents are public. This entire process from beginning to end is there. It is public record. You can ask questions anonymously. We will answer them and should provide any information that anyone may have on this process. That ends the slideshow. If you have any questions or comments, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Questions or comments? Mr. Simonian.
Just a couple of questions. What the capacity of the current middle school is what?
Currently at the middle school, we have approximately 530 students. This building has a certification enrollment for 560 students.
So I'm just curious what that's based on.
That actually was very early on in the process. MSBA has a statistical analysis that they conduct based on births in town as well as housing developments, and they come up with a number and tell us what we can actually build the middle school for. When they had initially come to us, they had stated 550 students. A number of us, Mrs. Gibbrey, Mr. Page, I think Mr. Imsey and I had conversations with MSBA about that and got them to agree to 560, but that was as high as they would go for that.
So it's a change of 30 students?
Yes, but it's based off of enrollment projections. So actually, our enrollment projections, sometimes are elevated and sometimes take dips. So this was based off of an analysis of past trends as well as I said, the births, as well as housing developments and plans in process.
Okay. And the other question I have is, in the presentation and both here in the brochure, it says that the building design reflects the Auburn Middle School's team-based educational delivery method, and I'm well aware of how that works, but my question is this, because several times in presentations that you've given at town meeting, you've stressed that, the education process is always being evaluated, analyzed, changed as necessary. So if somewhere down the road, through this evaluation process, we go away from that team-based concept, does the fact that the middle school is designed for that become a hindrance to the education process?
I don't believe so. Actually, when we started this process, the school committee had requested that I look to see and make a recommendation to them. Did we want to stay with the middle school model, or do we want to move to junior high, as well as the educational approach that we had in place? So an awful lot of research went into that. Mr. Gadnon participated in that study as well, and I feel very confident that the program that we have in place will remain. But changes do occur, you're right. And I don't think the design of this building will in any way be a hindrance to that. What this design actually affords us is to keep students by grade level in close proximity to one another. Right now, the current middle school design, just based on overcrowding and lack of space, you may have an 8th grade classroom out in the modulars and another 8th grade classroom on the first floor and one on the second floor. What this design allows is for both 6th grade teams, as well as both 7th and both 8th, to be very close together with science classrooms and really creating a nice cluster of opportunity for students to engage with each other and with their teacher teams.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
If I can answer one thing for you, Mr. Simonian. On the enrollment, we may be up to 30 students for total enrollment, but it's really the space requirements. The current school is only about 55,000 square feet, and the new school is at 103,000 square feet, a little bit over that. So it's really, with all the enrollments and they really do go back 10 years. They go forward 10 years projecting. They look at all the properties that could be available and project it out. So it was really the overcrowding was what the issue was with the Swanson Street School. So that's what the new school is affording us, is the greater volume of space for the students.
Thank you. Mr. Holstrom.
Yeah, I know there's, when the middle school that's out now, there's a lot of foot traffic. Students leaving the building, whether they're going to the mall, they're going to the market, wherever they're going. Has any of the roads in the area been addressed as far as walker safety, upgraded sidewalks?
I'll actually turn that over to Mr. Moore to answer. A traffic study was conducted, but while he comes up here, I do want to mention a few SBC members or guests tonight. Mr. Grossman is a member of the SBC, and I apologize for not mentioning Mr. Deedy is as well, and Dale Caldwell is here also from Skanska. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Moore to answer that.
Just in terms of walker safety, one of the things we did was we wanted to make sure that we got walkers out to Route 12 Southbridge Street, which does have sidewalks along this entire north side of it. West Street is 25 feet wide, so although it's a reasonably wide street, there is not enough room, especially in this area along here where we have wetlands, to expand out and create sidewalks. So what we did was to create a sidewalk path from the rear entrance of the school along here, across Masonic Circle, and to tie into the existing sidewalk that runs along the west side of Masonic Circle and down to Southbridge Street. We don't, our traffic consultant did not expect that there would be a great deal of walkers given the more commercial scope of Southbridge Street. But in the case that there are walkers, they will be able to travel along an accessible route out to Southbridge Street.
Well, through the chair, I understand an accessible route, you know as well as I do, we're going to take a shortcut. If we can walk through the woods, we're going to walk through the woods. If we can walk along West Street, it's going to be walking along West Street, but there's no place for them to actually walk. With truck traffic, with the cut through from Leicester, there's a lot of traffic on the road, so it would be a concern. The other case is the traffic on Southbridge Street with traffic lights, so there'd be plenty of crosswalks, foot traffic to going across, to maybe even go over to the Outback Steakhouse or go over to the fabric shop. I'm thinking, out loud here with walker safety.
The intersection at West Street and Southbridge Street was recently improved, so it does have those new signals. It has the crosswalks, the curb cuts, and the features to allow safe passage across there. We are recommending some additional improvements along West Street. We will be taking down some trees to improve sight lines for cars entering and exiting onto West Street. We are also proposing some lights, some flashing lights, signage to identify this as a school zone. It is a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but we know that people don't always obey that, and that will help identify this as a school zone. Also, in conjunction with the fire station complex here, there will be some lights added so that in the event that the fire apparatus needs to get out of here in a hurry, they can hit a button and turn on those lights so that it stops traffic along West Street. Those are some of the improvements. And as I mentioned before, the retiming during peak hours of that intersection.
Okay, thank you.
I had a follow-up to Mr. Hallstrom's. And, I understand that you've been out doing these presentations, and the good thing is the community is starting to talk about it and asking questions and also having concerns. And I believe it's better to get accurate, clear information out before the vote rather than having people raise these issues and not having their questions answered. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I've heard out in the community that there is some concern as to the noise level the trucks may bring as a disruption on West Street. Can you address that?
In terms of design, the building will be, as I mentioned, the classrooms will be dehumidified. They will have operable windows, but they can be isolated from any noise along West Street. We haven't identified that as an issue yet, but as I noted, the windows can be closed. They are insulating glass, which is going to be a better solution than what's currently in place at Swanson Road. Swanson Road has the highway next to it, which I would think would be far greater and far greater annoyance or distraction than what is experienced along here. And I think speed control too will greatly reduce the noise issues along there. I share your concern. We have seen there, and the traffic study pointed out, there is traffic along West Street from the truck to the recycling center.
So you do have the ability to close off these rooms, so there's not a concern with it affecting the education of the kids in those
Correct.
classrooms?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What else? Mr. Grossman?
I grew up in a small town, but on a main road with heavy traffic, trucks, cars, and so on. And after you've lived there a while, you don't hear them. You just tone it out. And I'm sure the administrative offices and, in your workday and so on, you probably you don't hear them.
I don't. I was actually going to say that my eyesight is failing. I wasn't sure if my hearing was too, but I really don't hear the traffic. I think it is that you become very accustomed. And the middle school is actually even more insulated from both the Southbridge Street and West Street traffic, with the parking lot that is along the West Street area, and then that large area, the expanse from the Masonic home back. So I think that any noise that we hear, which really is minimal, if at all, that they will hear even less of it, quite honestly.
Ms. Brotherton?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I truly look forward, being a Auburn Middle Schooler and an old Auburn higher. However, I did want to re-emphasize with Mr. Holstrom on the foot traffic. Also, being the parent of children in the school system, I would have been that parent that instead of getting in the car line, because it's really difficult to get out from like the Life Care Center, because I frequent there also, you're going to have more parents parked over at the Outback and having their kids cross. Just to avoid the traffic piece with the school area, they're going to park across Southbridge Street so they eliminate the school traffic.
I'm going to have Mr. Moore highlight again, because we've actually, in this, we were extremely cognizant of the pickup drop-off, just because it is such a challenge at the current middle school. So maybe if you can just point out how that traffic will go.
One of the things we did look at was how much space do we need for parents? And because there is, at Swanson Road, there's really no space whatsoever. And they're like this, the parents and the buses and the walkers, they all come together at the one place. So what we intentionally designed this so that there would be enough space for all of the parents. And they can queue up from this point here, all the way around here, down to here. And that provides adequate space for all the parents. Now we can't force every parent to actually drive in there and do that. Some probably will, pull into Masonic Circle or along Southbridge Street. I can't imagine anybody waiting along the side of Southbridge Street. Traffic moves pretty quickly, but we've made every effort to make it as parent-friendly as possible, so they don't do that, so that they come into the site and take this path, and then we have this exit here. And also in terms of West Street, one of the things I did neglect to mention, the traffic study. Right now, we know how much traffic comes along West Street from the north, from the Leicester direction. And we've designed for that. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. There could be extensive development and you get more traffic coming along West Street. It's easily used to get over to the Mass Pike and understand that. So at some point, there may be a need, and we think it's probably likely that there may need to be some work done along this intersection here, and probably an additional left turn lane. We don't feel it's necessary right now, but down the road that may happen, and at that point you would very likely address the sidewalk issues there as well.
I just brought that up, sir. I didn't mean to demoralize. I know you've done your homework. It's just I would be one of those parents at Outback picking up. On a second note, too, while Dr. Brunel is here, I really enjoy the fact that there's a garden area out there. I know I'm thinking really ahead, but what a great project, Dr. Brunel, to vegetable gardens for our less fortunate in the town of Auburn.
Absolutely.
Nice school project for the elderly, for the low income.
Absolutely. We look forward to making full utilization of that area. Thank you.
Mr. Simonian?
When is the construction projected to begin?
Full construction is projected to begin in April of 2014, assuming all approvals come in at our 2 meetings in May, election and town meeting. It could begin as early as December with some preliminary site work that would be started. December of 2013.
And while Mr. Barney's here, when is, through the chair, if you could, when is the Route 20 construction project supposed to wrap up?
You talking about the state's project at 1220?
Yes.
When the state gets done with it? They don't give us an end date. They've given us a start date. They expect to start in the spring. They were initially projecting a 24-month completion time frame. Sometimes they're great and they're able to get things done in 12 to 18 months, and sometimes it takes them 36. So they're projecting to start in 13 and finish spring of 15.
So,
but as with all good things.
So there would be some overlap and they'd be fairly close.
I believe they'd be going on at the same time. If I remember the slide correctly, the school was looking to occupy for fall of 15, but I...
Correct, yeah.
I mean, the construction phases of
most
both
likely,
projects
yeah.
would be. Okay. Has anyone given thought to, because I know when we had the presentation from the state, there were considerable concerns and discussion about the change due to traffic and everything over there during that. So I'm just curious if...
I can speak to that. We did, our traffic engineers did contact the state, and they responded that there would be no impact or associated impact of their work to the proposed work we're doing here.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Ramsey?
Thank you
Thank you,
having
Dr.
us.
Brunel.
If I can just take a minute to highlight some of the presentations that we have upcoming. We'll be doing a presentation to the Finance Committee on Wednesday evening of this week. Then on Thursday morning at 9, it's an open meeting at the high school at 9 o'clock in the auditorium for any community members who would like to attend. We'll also be doing 2 additional meetings next week, Tuesday evening and Thursday evening, both at 7:30 at the high school auditorium. And then on April 9th, which is a Tuesday, it will be in the morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we have been to the Senior Center, Life Care Center, the Rotary Club, Masons. We'll be going to the Women's Club. We've gone to the Chamber of Commerce, the PTOs and staff. So we are trying to get the word out so that everybody has as comprehensive information as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is that one mine or is... What did I just do?
Just give me a second. Next item we have is a one-day beer and wine license. Is the applicant here? Thank you for your patience.
My name is Shane Senior. I'm a resident of Auburn. I live on Mona Drive, and I'm also a member of St. Joseph's Parish, and we're petitioning the town requesting a one-day beer and wine license for a gala event we're having on the 27th of April, just up the road at this parish center.
Okay. And you met with the DCG?
Yes.
And you're aware of the conditions that they're recommending the board put? You obtain any and all Board of Health permits associated with the serving of food. The building and fire inspectors shall visit the location and inspect the setup for safe operation and egress. This visit shall be conducted once the tables, chairs, and other aperture equipment is in place, but prior to the opening of the location to the public, and a certified crowd manager shall be on site for the entirety of the event.
Yes, correct.
And you're familiar with obtaining that crowd
Yes.
manager
I
certification?
spoke with Mr. Antanavica, and he explained to me the process. He's going to send me a link. It's an online certification.
Online certification,
and,
yep.
and I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay. And you'll provide that prior to the
I will, I'll
event?
provide that to him either the day he does the inspection or before if he requires it.
Okay. And you have one tip certified
We'll
server
have
here.
a-
We have
yes.
a license for, a certification for one here. Okay. Do any members have any questions for Mr. Senior?
We have Mr. Butler's infamous drawing.
Drawing.
I see in our packet.
Yeah, we co-opted that, it was the same layout, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it worked.
So,
We'll just like to thank everybody for the time, and certainly you're all welcome to join. and-
we have to take 2 votes. Hold on.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the license provided all applicable requirements of the state and town. Any of its departments, boards, or commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
Are you including the conditions recommended by the DCG?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is there another?
Motion to waive the fee for the application.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you so much. Next item we have is a vote on the debt exclusion ballot question for the Auburn Middle School project. The board would vote in accordance with Chapter 59, Section 21C, to place a debt exclusion question on the annual town election ballot. Shall the town of Auburn be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds to be issued in order to finance construction, equipping, and furnishing a new middle school?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of placing the, Mr. Simonian?
This vote will put this on the ballot, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to comment, as I have in the past. I support the project, but I do not support this method of funding the project. We've talked about this, and I disagree with the debt exclusion. I don't think it's necessary from day one. We've had several discussions to use the excess levy, and we certainly can fund the project with that. So I think that sending this to the voters now is essentially holding them hostage with their own money. If we were going to send this to the voters, we should have done so from the start when we spent $600,000 for the feasibility study. The entire project should have been put in the voters' hands from day one, not now after we've spent a sum of money.
Is there anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Simonian? Thank you. Next item we have is a vote to forward a citizen's petition for street acceptances. We have 2 petitions that have been received for the annual town meeting warrant to accept Rethel and Perry Place as public streets. In accordance with the street acceptance process, the board would vote to first refer the request to the planning board for a report. And then the second motion would be to schedule a street layout hearing for this board on Monday, April 22nd.
Make a motion to put in a request to the planning board for Rethel Street and Perry Place.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Mr. Holstrom?
The 2 of these roads here, to accept Rethel Street will be from Bremen Street to its dead end, because I believe Rethel Street now from Bryn Mawr, Oxford Street North to Bremen Street has already been accepted. This is going to be the extension of?
Well, that's what this report the planning board will provide us with the report.
Okay.
This is, all of that information will be included. We're not voting to accept, we're voting to.
No, just so I get an understanding, because I understood that Rethel Street in its entirety had already been, except for that one piece, and then Perry Place was an addition to the Perry Street.
Do you know what Mr. Holstrom is referring to?
I
Which
do.
section of Rethel Street?
That's actually the town clerk's purview. She keeps the records of what's actually accepted. The planning board will report on the petition as written. And generally what's happened over the past half decade or so with these streets that were built many years ago and just sort of sold and the developer walked away, the planning board has looked at the condition, consulted the DPW, and made a recommendation. We generally won't wade into what has and hasn't been accepted. It'll be based on what the petition is.
Okay.
And I would expect that at the time the warrant is written, it will reflect what the citizens wrote, and if there is a portion that's accepted, that would be excluded. But that's a general inference.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is there an additional motion?
If you want to read it, that's the petition. If Mr. Holstrom wants to read it.
Mr. Holstrom, we have the petition here. It's to see if the town will accept Rethel Street as a public way from Oxford Street to Vine Street for a distance of approximately 1,700 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion regarding the scheduling of the street layout hearing?
Make a motion to schedule the street layout hearings for Monday, April 22nd, 2013.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next item we have is changes to flammable storage licenses, enclosed as a letter from the town clerk. I will take these separately. We have a request to revoke the following licenses, number 317 Southbridge Street, and that property is now vacant. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we revoke the license for 317 Southbridge Street.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The next would be for 101 Millbury Street, Auburn Industrial Development Corporation. The tank has been removed.
Motion to revoke the license at 101 Millbury Street, Auburn Industrial Development Corporation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in
Yes.
favor? Mr. Grossman?
Is that a gas tank? No.
I don't know.
We would have
Just
to
says the
report
tank.
that.
It's a flammable storage license, so.
The reason why I asked the question is because the tank can be removed, but the ground around it, there could have been leakage and so on, and expenses can be incurred before anything else could go in there if it's not clean.
That would, I believe, fall on the property owner. We're just revoking the license.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. And the third one would be for, to change the name on the license at 780 Washington Street. The license is currently under Millbury Motors, and it is now under Langway Ford. Is there a motion for the change of name on the license?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. It's done. Next item we have is gift acceptance from the fire department. We have a $25 gift to the fire department gift account from Brian Frappier. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next item we have is a request for a proclamation for Childhood Cancer Awareness Week in Auburn. Before you is the information. The request is for a proclamation, and it's my understanding that Sharon was going to contact the requester and see if they wanted to come into the, before this board to accept the proclamation if it's so approved.
Motion to approve proclamation for Childhood Cancer Awareness Week.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next item we have are member items. We have an update from the policy subcommittee. The first one is the bylaw recommendations. I just wanted to update the board that Mrs. Brotherton and I have met several times regarding policies of the board. Some of them have overlapped. We've adopted new policies for transient vendor, soliciting, junk and gold, and what's the other one? Gold, junk, unregistered motor vehicles. It'll be our recommendation when we bring it to the board is to eliminate these as bylaws and keep them as Board of Selectmen policies, where we're the licensing authority. They seem to overlap, and it's a much longer process to change a bylaw than it is to change a policy. So that is the update. We're still working on it, and we will be bringing those, working with the bylaw committee, bringing those forward. I've been working with Lieutenant Moss on that. The second one is a request by, I believe, Mr. Holstrom sometime back for a policy for the use of electronic communications during Board of Selectmen meetings. So we've written out two, and I'll open it up for discussion, and hopefully we will adopt one of these after the discussion. There shall be no use of electronic communication devices by members once the meeting has been called to order, or we can adopt a policy that would read, there shall be no use of electronic communication devices by members while any agenda item is discussed. Mr. Holstrom asked for it, so I was going to address him first, and I'll address yours. Mr. Holstrom, did this meet what your request was?
Yes, it did. I just want to be sure that we can curb some of the use of electronic devices during a meeting, so that there's no way of delaying a meeting or somebody's not paying attention to something. We just want to be sure that we have that in place so that we're not using any of those electronic devices.
Okay. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, this is something that goes back almost 3 years now, and the first couple times this came up for discussion, this was something that the Attorney General's office was looking to address, and I know that on at least 2 occasions we had requested guidance from them, and we had requested that we wait until they have some sort of policy, because it didn't make sense for us to have a policy that could then be superseded by the Attorney General's office. So have we had?
I did contact the Attorney General's office and discussed the proposed policy, and they assured me that there's nothing that in the open meeting law that would prohibit the board from adopting its own policy regarding the use of cell phones or electronic devices by members. It's not a violation of any open meeting law regulation, and that this board can adopt policies for its own board as it sees fit. Excuse me, Mr. Holstrom.
I don't believe that a state law will supersede anything that we can do in our meeting here. If we want to curb any kind of electronic communications devices here, we can do so. This is our meeting, and we can decide what we want.
Well, I received confirmation from the Attorney General's office.
Do we have that in writing? I'm just considering it's a policy that I don't know. I suppose, we could have called them individually. It just seems that this was requested a couple of times, and I would just thought that the information would have been made available to the whole board, that they did in fact have some sort of opinion on it.
Well, as you know, when you call the Attorney General's office, it goes by the current regulations, and this was submitted to made a request by the subcommittee. The subcommittee developed the policy, and then as a member of the subcommittee, before we brought it to this board, I confirmed with the Attorney General's office that it wasn't an issue. I didn't even think that members would want a written opinion from the Attorney General's office. It's not an opinion. It's the fact that it doesn't conflict with the open meeting law requirements.
I understand that. It's just we had asked for, again, like I said, this is going back a few years. We it seems to me that this was something, we were kind of waiting on. for the Attorney General to decide if they were going to have a policy or not. So the fact that it was never revisited would lead me to believe that we're still waiting on something. Meanwhile,
I think the conversation that happened a couple years back, we were discussing two different things. It was whether you can prohibit, excuse me, people in the audience from using their electronic devices if they're not disruptive, and whether you can adopt a policy for your own board. And they're two separate issues. This is developing a policy for board members only. We have a sign that says, you know, cell phones shall be turned off before coming in, but I can't prohibit someone from, in the back row, from text messaging or
no, I understand.
Using the internet.
And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with us adopting either one of these policies. What I do have a problem with is it seems like when it comes to Board of Selectmen policies, we are all over the map on these. In some cases, we want specific guidance written. We're going to talk to the town attorney. We're going to talk to this authority. We're going to talk, and in other cases, it's just, this is our opinion. We're just going to go with this policy. So maybe we need to adopt a policy on how we're going to craft policies in the future, whether we're going to specifically ask for guidance or we're just going to wing it.
All right, well, I disagree that we're just winging it, because I did contact the Attorney General's office, and they were very, very clear when I asked them about this proposed policy. They said there is nothing in the open meeting law that would prohibit a board from adopting this policy.
And I understand that, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. My point is this: other times we've recorded specific something in writing in our packet. This is what we found out from this authority, and at other times, well, this is what I heard. I mean, in a court of law, they'd say that's hearsay, and they wouldn't admit it. I know this is completely different. I'm just saying, we're all over the map when it comes to adopting policies for the Board of Selectmen. Sometimes we want written proof, and other times we just.
Well,
This is good enough.
I would respectfully disagree. As we know, whether it comes to ethics or the open meeting law, you know, they don't give. You call for yourself, right, and they don't give a written opinion. If you want to talk to the person that I talk to, if what they relayed to me is in question, but I know there was a concern, and we wanted it clarified, and I did contact the Attorney General's office. I did speak with them, and again, they told me that there's nothing in the open meeting law that prohibits a board from adopting their own policies. Mr. Holstrom?
I believe we should adopt this policy, and I'm going to make the motion right now that there shall be no use of electronic communication devices by members once the meeting has been called to order.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I guess I should call point of order, because as you're aware, this board adopted Robert's Rules of Order, and Robert's Rules does not allow a member to cut off discussion when the floor is still open.
We're under discussion.
Right, now the motion's been made and seconded, so it's a different discussion. That's fine. I'm just.
I'm not.
Motion's made and seconded.
Well, I didn't see where anyone was cut off from discussion. So the motion has been.
I had my hand up when Mr. Holstrom made the motion, but that's fine.
Good. Well, I apologize. I didn't see you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Next, we have town manager items. A proposed permit inspection fee schedule.
Through the chair, I'm going to ask Nick Antinovica to come up. As you have in your packet, a memo from Mr. Antinovica to me. He's been doing a lot of research since we brought him on board into permits and fees, and again, I'll let him speak to the specifics, but just generally speaking, the board has asked us always to just keep our eye on fees and permits and make sure that we're staying within market rate and we're covering our costs, and Mr. Antinovica followed up on that and did a very good job, thorough job of researching, so I'll let him present his findings.
To the chair. Over the last several months since I've taken the position as building inspector for the town of Auburn, I've done research with the surrounding communities that have the same type of population and same type of business atmosphere and residential atmosphere as Auburn to compare what we have for our inspectional fees and requirements from anything from a pellet stove up to our major commercial renovations. What I found was that we were at the bottom of the list and close to the bottom to the point where I was told by builders that they were surprised at how cheap our permit fees were. They expected them to be higher. Not that anybody likes to have fees raised, however, when you do have the lowest fees around, it's tough to run the department the way that it needs to be run and provide the services to the community that are required to keep them safe in the manner that we are required to do so by the state. In looking so, I've compared our fees, and the proposed fees that I've given to you to raise it, it's a moderate increase. One of the examples is for our residential permit fees. Right now, we charge $6 per thousand on a residential permit fee. I'm looking to increase that to $7 per thousand. So there's not a significant increase. However, over the course of the year, through the amount of permits that we do bring in, we're looking to increase the revenue from the department by about 10 to 15%, which will help us cover the expense of hiring an additional part-time inspector, which will help with our 110 inspections. These are annual inspections that are required by the state. Due to the changing requirements of the 110 inspections, we have incurred additional inspection requirements. Close to over 100 buildings in this town now require annual inspections. So we're trying to find a way to help do what the state is mandating of us.
Mr. Holstrom.
Thanks for being here tonight, Nick. I can see all these fees here. Is it a application permit fee and then an inspection fee? How is that determined? Do you have in-process inspections depending upon what the project is? How does that work?
It depends on the project. For individual fees, we have specific fees for, say, pools or pellet stoves, items like that. Those are singular inspections. Items such as a new house or an addition or a deck require several inspections. Those fees are encompassed in the entire permit fee. That's where we get the amount of $7 per thousand instead of saying, you know, we're going to charge you $30 every time I walk out there to look at something. We take the total price of the improvement and we generate our permit fee from that, and that covers the cost of my plan review and then the required inspections throughout the construction project.
And if I may just a follow-up, what is the reinspection fee then? You got it under miscellaneous permits, so what would a reinspection fee consist of?
Okay, the reinspection fee would be if somebody had put something on a set of plans that was per code, and I went out to do the inspection and I found that they had constructed it incorrectly or something had changed on the plans, and it didn't meet the requirements of the code book or something wasn't done correctly. The reinspection fee would be for me to come back out here after the inconsistency was corrected, for me to review that before they moved on to the next stage.
Great, thank you, Nick.
Mr. Simonian?
When was the last time that any of the fees were changed, do you know?
2004.
So
August of 2004. It's been almost a decade.
Considerable amount of time.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the fees as written by the building inspector.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I want to just follow up on that and just let the board know that we did bring these proposed fees to the most recent business roundtable meeting just to let the business community know what we're doing, why we're doing. It gave them an opportunity to answer questions. That was last Wednesday. Mr. Antanovic and Mr. Bernie were there, explained, answered questions, and those who were in attendance fully understood, especially when they heard that we hadn't raised the fees in 9 years and we were that much lower. They recognize that we have required inspections to do, and we've got to try to cover our fees, or that cost gets spread amongst all the taxpayers. So it's important to put the cost on the cost center that's driving it. So,
thank you. And we have an update on the Route 12
yes, just
issue
very
that was raised.
briefly, I'm sorry, very briefly, through the chair. We had a resident that came in a couple weeks ago from the area, Mrs. Dubois, and she had expressed a number of concerns, and the board at that time had asked the town administration for a report. So I'm going to give you a preliminary report, and at the next meeting, we're going to have a final report.
Okay.
Because we're still in the process of data collection through the police department. But I would tell you, just by way of background, when Mrs. Dubois first came to the board, I believe it was my first year here, it was probably in the fall or winter of 2011, that myself, the DPW Director, Bill Coyle, and the Acting Police Chief, Mark Moss, at that time, sat down and met with Mrs. Dubois. And we had discussed her concerns, answered several of her questions, and there was no further action that was required on our part. She did come back to the board a few weeks ago, expressed similar concerns again about speeding and the potential danger of the speeding cars on that road. Right now, I can tell you that preliminarily, the police department has been tracking the speeds using a speed monitoring device. It is not a speed trailer where someone actually sees the trailer, sees their speed and slows down. It is not through a police car where sometimes they see the car and they slow down. It is a very small monitoring device that's placed on a pole. Can't really even see that it's up there. And it monitors the speed. Right now, preliminary, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the preliminary data that came in was right now only for the southbound traffic. And it was at 28 to 29 miles an hour. We have not done the northbound, that's what's in process now. So the data is still being collected. When all the data is finalized, again, I believe it was 28, 29 miles an hour. I don't have a full report from the police department, but I just wanted to give you an update. That should be done in a week, and we should be able to come back to the board with a full report on that, the speeds that are on that road.
Thank you. Mr. Simonian?
Yeah, I was going to bring this up under member items, but I saw this on the agenda, so I wanted to wait till now. I was actually going by there the other day, and there, I don't know that, but they were directly parked across from Polar. There were two tractor-trailer trucks. They were taking up almost the entire lane, heading into Worcester on Route 12, and cars were going into the opposite oncoming traffic lane to avoid the trucks. So, again, I can't say definitively it was Polar, but just, you know, down the road, maybe if we have to, I would ask the board to direct the town manager to send them a letter just reminding them that, you know, that is not a place to park. So I'll hold off on that for now, but I just wanted to make the board aware that I did see this, and it was a concern.
Mr. Holstrom?
Yeah, I think I'll just go along with what Steve had mentioned, that the woman that came forward, speed was one of the issues, but also parking of the trucks so that they could access their parking lot in the warehouse. So trucks would be landing on Southbridge Street and stopped and blocking driveways, and that was part of the concern she had brought forward. So the speed, yes, I understand, it's been addressed, we're looking at that, but also the blocking of the road and their access in and out of their properties. That was one of her other, so we want to be sure that that's also addressed.
And through the chair, I also want to just clarify that this is a state road. The town does not set the speed limit. And that question came up before. It is not within our authority to set that speed limit. That would have to be done by the Department of Transportation, and that's who did set the current speed limit, which at this point appears to be well above the average speeds that are going. So we will look at all of her issues and get a full report back to you, but I just want to give you an update on where we were.
Thank you. We have no tabled items. Is there any public comment? Any board comment?
Through the chair, if I could just add one more thing, just a reminder that tomorrow morning at the Senior Center at 10:30, Charter Communications is coming in to present to the seniors information and answer questions on the new charter boxes, and they will be bringing, per the board's recommendation, bringing a sample box and actually demonstrating to the residents how to make that connection. So that's at 10:30 tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Anything else? We have the minutes of August 13th, 2012. Are there any corrections or omissions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Sharon, thank you. This was a pretty comprehensive
No, I read it.
minutes that, from that meeting, and it was, there was a lot going on that night. A lot of detail here, and as far as I can see, I don't see any omissions, and I don't see anything that we need correcting, but I wanted to say thank you, Sharon. Nice job.
Especially for an important hearing like that. It was. I went through and went, well, she captured, if anyone reading these minutes, you really captured the hearing. So, thank you. Motion, the chair will accept them as written. Is there a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
And
Wow.
good night.